Chase Young is a pressure machine right now. And I think that really speaks to the fact that he's winning a lot. You see that in his pass rush win rate. I don't think it's just a product of being on that D-line. I think that can help. But he's going to another D-line that's supposed to be pretty good. And so I really like San Francisco saying, hey, we have a problem. We're going to extinguish this fire. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at it, right? Okay, it's 9:30 at night. I eventually want to go to sleep. I had the kids out trick-or-treating, had to drive them home. The baby didn't like trick-or-treating, so Mama abandoned us in the cul-de-sac, and she was like, oh, you got the kids, which is fine. It's Halloween. But I told her it's trade day, so I got to come back into work and record again. We had to record earlier today. You're going to hear that portion with Steve and Macon. We talked about at around lunchtime some of the trades that happened last year, but we stayed out of the trades that happened today because of the timing. Nobody wants to do a podcast on what happened at the trade deadline at noon. So because of our schedules, what you're going to hear for most of this pod is dated as it pertains to trades. And most of that is going to revolve around gambling, okay? I suck right now. I can't win a bet. I'm obsessed with it. Sometimes,
it's not for lack of trying, though. You are studying.
Yeah, I'm studying my ass off. And that's what got me into trouble last week. I hit a little road bump 10 days ago, and I've been chasing ever since, and it just got ugly this weekend. And I only know how to do one thing, work my way out of it. Even though there's a situation like where Paul Rudd's on the beach, and they're like, do less. Like that whole thing, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Mm-hmm. Is that the movie?
Yeah.
Or,
Kona.
In Tin Cup, I feel like somebody's got to put a fucking something in my pocket, like Roy McAvoy or something. Isn't that what happened to him?
Yeah, put a T behind your ear, all your change in your left pocket.
Exactly.
Like
I didn't put my change in my left pocket. So we spent a lot of time talking about gambling this week. The locks are neck and neck now. We've all regressed to the mean. Or, in Macon's case, he's made a fucking run, and now we're all clustered together, getting ready for the second half push. So we'll do college football, we'll do gambling, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I decided to come back in at 9:30 at night to talk about today's trades. And to set the table for this thing, I had a doctor's appointment scheduled for 3:45. Fucking brilliant. 4 p.m. trade deadline. Yeah, let me take the 3:50 at Dr. Redacted's office. Everything's fine. Big, strong, healthy boy. It's all good. But it kind of sucks sitting in the waiting room when there's no phones allowed. And I was a good boy. I did not look at what was going on in the late threes. I get into the doctor's office. I'm sneaking my phone out, and the dude walks right in. And so I don't have any time. We're talking about my health. I can't be like, hey, doc, can we stop for a second so I can see if Jalen Johnson got moved? I just don't have that ability at the doctor's to do that. And so it was really bad scheduling by me. I walked out into the hallway. First off, something you notice when you go to a doctor's office the day of the trade deadline is that people in the doctor's office don't give a fuck about the NFL or trades. It's like I come out of this little bunker that I'm in where everybody at work, all we think about is football. Everybody on my timeline, all they're thinking about is football. Just a bunch of sickos, and we don't know we're sickos. And then I go out in the world, and it's just nurses and scrubs that couldn't give a fuck less about Montez Sweat. And we're in Commander's country here. I didn't hear anybody. They were just giving out flu shots, which I got one. Okay, you can call me a sheep if you want, but I'm getting a flu shot. Okay, last year, didn't get a flu shot. The thing knocked me down. I was laid up like somebody in the 1800s who was going to die. They got their leg amputated. You know how those guys feel on the table in the Civil War? That's how I felt watching Dolphins, Bills in the snowstorm. I was hurting, so I got the flu shot today. But I go out in the hall. Nobody's talking about the NFL. Nobody gives a fuck about the NFL. I'm on my way out. I'm at the table. And, the lady is like, she knows I played. And I'm like, what'd you think about Donovan Peoples-Jones? And she just looked at me like, I don't know who the fuck that is. And I don't blame her. And that's kind of what today's trade deadline came down to. Now, I know in the last 5-7 years, the NFL's made some gains on the NBA, but we'll never be the NBA.
She might have heard about the James Harden trade.
She might have heard about the James Harden trade. Well, really, it's more the PJ Tucker trade for me. I love PJ Tucker.
It's the Josh Harris trade for me. That guy's willing to rebuild.
Exactly. And we'll talk about that in a second. I actually talked to Russillo tonight. And I was like, what did you think about the trades? And he's like, listen, Embiid. I'm like, well, motherfucker, I'm talking about the NFL. Take a break. Take a break. And I'm like, no, I like PJ Tucker. What happened with that? He's like, well, no guy that age has a contract set up like that. The whole thing. I'm like, no. Tell me what you think about Montez Sweat, Ryan, just for a second. Humor me. But I walk out of the doctor's and I see that really nothing happened at 4 o'clock. What is this, Killers of the Flower Moon? It's like fucking, I've never seen something with so much buildup.
3.5 hours of waiting.
At least. I feel like we waited 3.5 weeks. I'm not complaining because in this job, it's really good to have something to talk about. I would kill for a trade deadline come like fucking May or something. Okay, or June. But this is what we've got now, and the NFL is trying to make this more of a thing. And we fall for the okie doke. Every year we fall for the banana and tailpipe, and we do it willingly. I'll be in the front of the chow line next year, no problem, talking about Derrick Henry. You got to trade him now. At some point, this Datsun is going in the shop. But like it's got 400,000 miles on it, and it hasn't slowed down yet. And people are not sending over enough to pry him out of Tennessee. It's
but even the trades that don't happen are pretty fun too.
It's fun to talk about the trades that don't happen. Like it feels good to put your GM hat on for like a week, and you're like, I could do this shit. But then later you get into talking about comp picks and free agency, and it's like fucking your head's in a blender. We just talked about it for 30 minutes trying to figure out one player not getting moved today. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, trade day, a lot of fun, the build up, the whole thing. It didn't deliver, like in the splashy ways that we thought it might. You talk about running backs, quarterbacks, that sort of thing. But there were some significant moves. So I wanted to come back in the office, talk about this stuff, and then we'll get into Stanford Steve, Macon, and myself bullshitting about God knows what for 90 minutes. I'll start with the guys who are not D linemen. A lot of the reason I'm in here is to talk about D linemen. Because I don't feel like every year we have 3-4 D linemen traded at the deadline who people have heard of. And that's what we have today.
Does that speak to the position a little bit? Like just how significant it is for a playoff push?
I think so, but one of the teams is not making a playoff push.
Right.
Okay? And we can talk about that in a second. Also, one of the guys that I was sure that somebody that was making a playoff push would be after, nobody plucked. So we'll get into that. Here are the guys that, like popped up that were non-D linemen. The Ezra Cleveland trade, I think this is a good one for Jacksonville. We were talking about it as a group, like it's an upgrade. Shatley has struggled, right? Walker Little's been banged up. When you look at Jacksonville's pass rush or pass block win rate, I don't think the pass rush win rate's very good either on the other side, and that might come up again. Outside of Josh Allen, who's been fucking dynamite. But, like, they've hidden this thing up front pretty well if you're not watching them closely. I mean, you don't think of, like, dumpster fire O-line in Jacksonville. But when the numbers bear out, it's not great. Like, in the past game, it hasn't been great. And Ezra Cleveland is worth a 2024 sixth. And, I thought they'd be real aggressive. This was not, like, a splashy, aggressive move, but this is a move that says everything you need to know about what they think is important. Like when we talk about San Francisco in a second, I don't know if they were making a move for somebody in the back end, but if you look at the rush and coverage problem, because it's a married problem, meaning, hey, when your D-line's not getting home, you can look at the back end sometimes. I think there's some validity to that in San Francisco and vice versa, right? They decided to build up front. Like if they're going to make a move today, they made it up front. So it's interesting for Jacksonville, pass rush was a concern, but evidently pass blocking is a bigger concern. And I kind of get it. I kind of get it. I was all horned up for somebody to make a move for Hunter. Nobody made a move for Hunter. Ezra Cleveland it's a trade that makes sense. It's not something that's going to wow you. It's a trade that makes sense. And Balky's had some decent trades. I mean, he just made the Ridley trade, which I think we're going to talk about later. I think that's a trade that's going to pay off. It already has. He got a 6 for James Robinson. There's a few trades he's made. Like, obviously, C.J. Henderson was somebody he had to dump, but he got rid of C.J. I can't speak to his draft day record, but he's not awful at doing this kind of stuff, and I think this was a good, solid trade. The trade I really like, because it hits close to home, that kind of went under the radar today. I can't imagine how. Weren't so many big trades that Buffalo on the back end is. We've constantly talked about the corner problem, and it's reared its head at different turns in the road. And then with Trey White out, it's like we really got to do something. And you thought maybe they'd go out and get somebody, and they did. And Rasul Douglas, and I love Rasul Douglas. When I was with him, he was a rookie in Philly, and I thought he was a little bit misused at times. But I think he's very valuable to this Buffalo team coming from Green Bay, where he's really his career took off, really. I mean, he was a big part of what we did in Philly, but it was a much more perfect fit in Green Bay. And this is a guy who can play zone. And, if you talk about the differences in the coverages, I mean, like you're talking about playing quarters or cover 3 and that sort of thing, but it's zone at the end of the day. He's a zone corner. And I think it's going to work out really well for Buffalo. They're going to like the guy they get. He's one of my favorite young guys I've played with. Me and Rasul, I always talk about on this. The reason me and Rasul know each other well enough is like we used to sit there in the players' lounge after everybody was out of the building and just shoot pool. And he took my money all year long. He's pretty good. He's a great teammate, a lot of fun. I think Buffalo's going to get a guy that they're going to want to have around because he's just that kind of guy. And I think he can do everything they're going to ask him to do, and they need him. So.
And that's one point about a GM having job security. Like in 2021, being drafted Khair Elam in the first round.
Yeah, Elam, yeah.
Elam. And
yeah, I have trouble with the name.
He hasn't been playing this season at
Right.
all. Like somebody who was more in the hot seat might not be willing to make a trade that admits he made a mistake in the draft.
And that's a hard thing, right? Like we talked about it with Jacksonville, and I don't know. I've never been in a GM's head, but this has got to be a real thing. Because I know as like an analyst, it's hard sometimes to let a take go.
Sure.
I'm not getting paid. I mean, I'm getting paid to give takes, but I'm not getting fired if I give bad takes. I'd already be fired. We all have them. But like when you're drafting in the top 5 and you miss on somebody, and I know it's early, but the Trayvon pick, if it's an either or thing, by the way, I'm not suggesting they're the same player. I think Hutchinson is really good. But how many sacks does I'm afraid to say this. How many sacks does Trayvon Walker have this year? 2?
Let me see.
He picked up one this week. Would it not be funny if these
3.5.
3.5? You know how many Hutch has? I know it's not just sacks. Don't go down this road. But everybody,
He's got 4.5.
He's got 4.5. Okay, Hutch is a better player, no question. He adds a lot. He adds a lot outside. He adds a lot inside. I think he's all-around playmaker type guy. And there's a big difference between him and Walker. But the same way people, overreact to that number, like, isn't it funny that Trayvon is statistically only a bucket away from Hutch, which tells you sacks aren't everything at all. But when you look at these two guys, we like Hutch better. Hutch is the better player. I think that'll bear out over time.
And it shows now in the pressure numbers.
The pressure numbers.
Right now, Hutch has 52 to Walker's 27.
Hutch might be up around like number 1 in the league in pressures.
Tied for first.
And how many does Trayvon have?
27.
Which is still not a bad year.
No.
If Trayvon ends up with 7-8 sacks and 60 pressures, that's a fucking really good year. Mm-hmm. Especially for what you assumed he would end up with. Like just kind of watching this thing go, especially early this year. But the point is, I got to be careful just going through thought exercises with you guys because you'll think I'm giving a take. It's just a thought exercise. Back into the take. Hutch and Walker, you think you miss. Okay. Do you want to win a Super Bowl? Or do you want people to they already know you missed. Like, go get somebody. Go get somebody that can help you win a Super Bowl. And I don't know the reason that they didn't go nab a pass rusher. We talked about Hunter. We talked about that whole thing. But, like, maybe the price was too high. I do think it's hard for GMs, probably, if I had to guess, to let go of a take, so to speak.
Yeah.
And not even saying like, hey, trade Trayvon Walker, for instance. But to bring in a reinforcement, even though it really doesn't do anything to hurt Trayvon Walker, I think some GMs are worried about the message it sends, but also the confidence. You know, if you want Trayvon Walker to get confident, he's got 3.5 sacks. He's starting to see some results that'll keep the public at bay, because, you know, that's what you need to keep the public at bay, just the sacks. That's all. Unless they think you suck, and then you get the sacks and they're like, well, that's just stats. People are going to feed whatever confirmation bias they have. But I do think this is a situation where that might have at least factored in a little bit, which is, if it is, that's dumb to me, because you're talking about a window to win a Super Bowl.
It is more pressure with the literal #1 overall pick. Like, that's such a franchise-defining moment.
I would rarely draft a defensive end with the #1 pick. I wouldn't do it with the #2 pick. You're looking at one. I just wouldn't do it unless the guy's like fucking, you know, like, I don't know who I could think of. Von Miller,
Garrett.
Myles Garrett. You knew Myles Garrett. Look at the motherfucker when he was at Texas A&M.
Yep.
I mean, so I guess long-winded conversation about drafting and covering up your mistakes, or you know the wrong side of a binary decision, like an A/B decision where you take Hutch. Does that factor in for GM? I don't know. Kind of interesting to think about the way we think about it in the media. Like, it's hard to let go of certain takes. Like, Desmond Ridder starts balling out, I got to be sitting here and be like, well, I still don't believe it. You know, and how much of that is like something I can't control? It's just my confirmation bias. And how much of it is just me walking back a take? That's a thing that you end up in. Even if you try to do your job honestly as an analyst, it's hard sometimes. You gave the take because you believe something.
And they believed in his potential.
And they probably still believe in that potential.
Yeah.
So, and hey, not giving up on the kid. I've been pounding the table for somebody to go get Hunter from Minnesota, and nobody went and got him today. The main thing we're here to talk about, though, I got to talk about Donovan Peoples-Jones. Okay, I'll give you a couple seconds on that. I think he's a good player. I think he's a possession guy. They don't have a guy like that, a real possession guy, like a big body possession guy. I don't know how big he is, but he plays kind of big.
He's big. He'll be
big and
that
fast.
50-50 ball guy.
Yeah. So Peoples-Jones, that's a different wrinkle for them. The Lions keep making really good intentional moves, and they're not moves that wow you sometimes. Like last year, we're going to talk about the Hawkinson trade in a little bit with Stanford Steve and Macon. This trade could make a lot of sense, right? And it's not one that's turning people's heads. For Cleveland, it's a little bit like, hey, you said, Nolan, that maybe they want Cedric Tillman out there a little bit more.
Yep. Yeah, the guy that drafted this past April.
You know, for a casual fan, you're like, big fucking whoop. But the Lions now have an Amon-Ra type guy. You've got a Jameson Williams type guy who's just straight line. Let's see what we got here. We're trying to figure out the way to get him the ball. Had a drop on Monday night. They put it on him. It wasn't all on him. Goff's put it on his back hip, put it in his back pocket. He had to turn around to catch the ball. But then you've got your Donovan Peoples-Jones now, and you've got a quality tight end. You've got two different kinds of backs. You have an offensive line. Josh Reynolds, you know, they have Josh Reynolds, intermediate level stuff, but like they don't have anybody quite like this. So they are very complete, which is why I always say, like, Jared Goff's got to play well.
Yeah, and they needed to replace Marvin Jones, who left the team, and they were hoping for more from him. So I view it just as kind of like fourth wide receiver insurance.
And hopefully
special team player too.
Hopefully everything's okay with that situation. It was a personal matter.
Right.
There's enough to take him away from the field. You got to assume something's going on. You got to assume he's not coming back for a while. And I don't know that he was getting a lot of burn anyways.
Not in recent games.
So,
or in the first couple.
You know, it's a good trade. It's a good, solid trade. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes of the day. I'll start with the Commanders. You woke up this morning, if you're a Commanders fan, and you say, you know, we don't have much to hang our hat on, but we got this fucking D-line, boy. And some days we have Sam Howell. Some days we don't have Sam Howell. When you play the Eagles, it's like we've got hope, and hope is a dangerous thing. And it's a dangerous thing for all fan bases, because if you're watching this video or you're listening to this podcast, you have a team probably that you care about. Another thing, we talk about sports media and being an analyst is like every fan I interact with thinks either I hate their team. I don't get it. This, that, and the third. I'm emotional. When in actuality, most times it's the fan that's being emotional. If I'm wrong, it's just because I'm fucking wrong. Like, there really isn't a lot of emotion. The most emotion I put into a game is that I have a fucking sectional sofa on a game, okay? And that might bleed into my analysis of the game, but I don't care, dude. I don't care. I was really hurt for the Eagles when they lost the Super Bowl, but the next day I woke up and my life continued. You know, like, I'm not super fan 99. I don't hate your team, okay? I actually, if there were a scale that showed like how I feel about a team, do I feel favorable about that team? Do I like that team or do I not like that team? If I'm being honest, the Commanders are likable. Like, their fan base is likable. You guys are fucking something, man. You guys
finally have a likable owner.
You've got, yeah, you've
semi-likable
been,
at least.
that's half the reason you're likable now is because you got rid of Dan Snyder. I grew up around Redskins fans, okay? This is the former team name. Now they're Commanders fans. They were the football team. They'll go any way you want to go, these fans, these Commanders fans. You're fucking 6-10, no problem. We'll go to FedEx Field, sit under a pipe that's leaking diarrhea. You know, like, they are literally diehard fans. And I every year, my wife's one of her good friends that she played lacrosse with, name was Ginger Miles, still named Ginger Miles. And she was a big Redskins fan, and she called them the Foreskins. But she loved the Foreskins. You know, it's like, it just was a big part of her life. So, like, I respect Commanders fans greatly, and I'm about to address you folks. Because I'm sure you woke up this morning and you were like, what the fuck are we doing? We're kind of close. You're not close. Not this year. You're not close. I'm telling you. When Stanford Steve said a couple weeks ago, we were talking about who's going to occupy that last spot in the NFC wildcard race. When he said Washington, what did I say? Schedule. I said, I'm worried about their schedule. I don't think they make a run this year. They've lost a couple times since then, right? If you're Josh Harris, if you're the GM there, you know, if you're Mayhew or one of these guys, if you're Ron Rivera, Ron's just like, I don't know, man. I'm year to year. I'm week to week here. But, like, if you're one of these guys, here's what you're looking at the rest of the season. You're looking at the 8th toughest schedule in the league. I didn't look that up. I just eyeballed the schedule. Then I looked up strength of schedule. These guys are 8th in strength of schedule in a bad way the rest of the year. You're not going to make a run. You're going to need 9 or 10 wins to get into the playoffs. If they go 6-3, I'll eat my fucking hat, whatever that means. People always say that shit. I will eat a hat. I will eat this dirty hat on fucking... I will eat it. I will eat this hat if Washington goes to the playoffs this year. And I know it's possible, but they're not going, dude. And that's not to say I don't like some of the players there. Terry McLaurin, I'd let him watch my kids. Never met the guy in my life. Like, I just trust the guy. He's tremendous. Brian Robinson, when he came out with that big-ass hat last year, fucking got shot, came back, and he's running through people like a month later on the field. Sam Howell, I love that chicken-eating motherfucker. I love all those guys. I love that D-line. I was on a D-line like that. We might have been better. They don't have a Robert Quinn. Not 19-sack Robert Quinn. That motherfucker was different, boy. And we were deep. Now, this D-line is dominant, okay? Like, those inside guys, amazing. And the outside guys are really good, too. Like, you know, you got a Montez Sweat. You've got a Chase Young. You've got some dogs there. But that doesn't mean that you should keep them together. Trust me. I was part of a group like that. It didn't get us over the hump, okay? That's the bottom line. Is like, this team's trying to win football games, not just scare the shit out of offensive linemen. Because that's what they're doing right now. They scare the fuck out of offensive linemen, and the defense isn't that great. Objectively, it's not that great. Total defense, not great. Front seven, scary, right? It's fucking Halloween. Scary. But that doesn't mean you're going to win football games. And you paid both guys inside, and it sucks to break up the band. I to this day, I'm still sad about our band breaking up in St. Louis. I got a group text. People ask me today, an Eagles fan, they always ask me because they think they know my answer. They're like, oh, he's going to dump on the Pats. You know, they're like, what's the favorite team you've ever been on? 2012 St. Louis Rams. Biggest bunch of dogs I've ever been around. And we loved every minute of it. We had so much fun together. But guess what? Even though we were together for 4 years or whatever it was, and that's a long time in the NFL for a position group to try to stay together. And they would do 4 first-round picks, whatever, added Aaron Donald, let's go get Nick Fairley. Let's go get Kendall Langford. Let's get all these guys that are just – the band broke up, and that's what happens. And it's unfortunate, but at least Commanders fans, you can go, do you remember those teams? You remember those fucking Ron Rivera teams? They weren't very good, but that D-line was great. You paid the guys inside. You couldn't pay both guys outside. When Montez Sweat got traded, I was like, oh, they chose Chase Young. Okay, and I don't know if this is when I was in the doctor's office or what, but then Chase Young gets traded. And you're like, oh, I guess if you can't pay either of them, maybe they really like these guys. They don't want to offend either guy. They're like, we'll ship you both out of here. But the Montez Sweat trade to me, when I first heard it, because I don't want to come across ever like when you're talking about trades, you're just talking about value. You're talking about teams and the value that they accrue in the trade, the risks that they take on, that sort of thing. I hate hearing people use Chase Young to down Montez Sweat. Like I got on the internet today and people were like, oh, Chicago's stupid. They didn't even pick the better DN. If I'm Montez Sweat and I read something like that, not that he's reading anything like that, I just feel so disrespected. All he's done is be productive. His top end production's been better than Chase's. His average production, his durability, all that stuff. So don't miss me with the Chicago got the worst player thing. And I'm going to get to Chase in a second because I like Chase. But miss me with that thing. Where Chicago, I think, maybe fucked up a little bit is if you'd have said, hey, Chris, tap me on the shoulder, 3 o'clock in the waiting room. Nurse comes up. Nurse is like, yo, somebody just traded for Montez Sweat. I'm like, what did it take? It took a 2. If I had to guess who that team was, one of the last teams I would have guessed would have been the Chicago Bears. Because I just don't understand where they think they are. And, I think Poles, Cunningham, Ian's my guy. I don't know who's making these decisions or not. They'd have to explain it to me. Because last year you go out, you ship a 2 for Chase Claypool. We all know it was a bad trade. At the time, I didn't know it was a bad trade. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I kind of liked that trade when it happened because I'm dumb. I make dumb takes sometimes. I see the upside sometimes in things, and I want things to work out, and I think oh, you're investing in a young wide receiver who's got nobody. This is pre-DJ Moore. It was Mooney and a bunch of shadow program guys. Fuck yeah, you need this guy. You need him to have somebody to throw the ball to, and I like buying guys low in situations where it's gone sour. But obviously Tomlin in Pittsburgh wasn't the problem with Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool is the problem. And we sent him a whole thing of dip, a whole thing of Copenhagen, the whole thing. I don't think I'm sending him another one. No offense. But, you made my guy look bad up there in Chicago. They traded for you, then they trade you back down to Miami. It's all fucked up now. But you do it again with another second rounder this year, and it better work out. It better work out. This guy better be lights out, and you better sign him with a deal that feels like kind of a bargain because you gave up a 2 to get him. That's a lot.
And it's a lot 2 from Chicago. We say 2 like they're all equal. That's 2. Probably pick in the low 30s, mid 30s.
That's a high 2. And it's more than anything, you have to pay the guy, right? So you're going to have to pay the guy. But by the time you're good, how good is he going to be? So I didn't quite understand that one. I'm not going to give out grades because we go back in a couple minutes and we grade last year's trades, and we also talk about how they were graded initially. These guys are fucking wrong all the time. You almost fade the initial draft grade. But I didn't get this one as much. It seems a little out of phase.
Did it make any more sense when they didn't trade Jalen Johnson at the deadline? Despite every single rumor being about Jalen Johnson?
Well, I don't know how that went down, but what I read is Jalen Johnson has been given permission to seek a trade, which is such an interesting thing to hear, and then not actually get traded because it's kind of oh, fuck. I didn't want to be here, and now they know my value is not as high as I thought it was, and nobody came to save me, and I'm right back here. Now, I can't speak to how that relationship is in that building, but yeah, if I was in Chicago, I might want to be traded.
Yeah, it's like in poker, you get a big bluff and you get called. It's not a good feeling.
All right, Chase Young. This was the big story, right? Because it was like Montez Sweat, and we were like, oh, they're done, the whole thing. The Chase Young thing, I think, is a very good move for the Commanders. I don't want to take it from the Commanders' side. I just want to talk about San Francisco's side. Who is Chase Young? Okay, I think this is the first question. I've said this before. I think when he was young, people overrated him. And 3 years later, whatever it is, it's been a long 3-4 years, I think he's underrated. Okay? And the injuries, that sort of thing, you can't control that stuff. He's got like 15, 16 sacks on his career. But when I watch the guy, especially now, I feel like he's figuring some things out in pass rush. And I had no idea that he was in the top 5 in pressures in the league. He's got 40 to this point. We're at the halfway mark or so, the 48th percentile mark or whatever.
Damn, 17
all
game
fucked
schedule
up,
made
dude.
everything
Now these
hard.
guys are going to get more pressures than me. We're going to have to be like, oh, fuck. We had one more game. But Chase Young is a pressure machine right now. And I think that really speaks to the fact that he's winning a lot. You see that in his pass rush win rate. I don't think it's just a product of being on that D-line. I think that can help. But he's going to another D-line that's supposed to be pretty good. And so I really like San Francisco saying, hey, we have a problem. We're going to extinguish this fire. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at it, right? We go out and we get Randy Gregory. It's like a flyer. Okay, now we've actually got to go make a move that we put some equity into it if we want to get a return. And the move they make is sending a 3 over that they got that was a conditional 3 originally. It's one of those Rooney Rule minority hire picks that you get if you get somebody promoted. And forgive me if I'm butchering it, but the bottom line is D'Amico leaving gave them a 3. Okay? They know they have that 3. They don't know what they want to do with it. But, you know, you think about it like when I win a bet, I'm like, I'm going to do something fucked up, like a parlay with this house money, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the way I think. They're like, I've got this 3 sitting in my back pocket. Nick Bosa's out there, 9 pressures in the first half. Nobody else is winning. You know, Cincinnati picked us apart. What's going to be different about that matchup if you do nothing come the Super Bowl or you play, you know, the Cowboys again and it looks different, or the Eagles? You're trying to make a run. And so sending a 3 over that you didn't have a year ago for a guy like Chase Young, who's playing like a real plus right now in the NFL, and I think also, like, you can't ignore the factor of when a guy gets traded, sometimes he doesn't want to be somewhere. You know, if he doesn't have a no trade clause, you get shipped somewhere shitty. I always tell the story about Michael Brockers. Pretty funny. He was in my group text for the Rams D-line. We were lighting his ass up because when Jared Goff got traded, he said something like, and Matt Stafford came to L.A., he was like, great, we got a real quarterback. And I don't think he meant it like that necessarily, but a lot of truth just kind of comes out, or it's said in jest. And obviously, it wasn't the most respectful comment towards Jared Goff, but I don't think he meant it to be disrespectful. A day later, his ass was shipped to Detroit. And in our group text, there was no mercy. I mean, I've seen this group text gang up on probably the biggest He-Man on the planet, the biggest alpha on the planet, Aaron Donald, for shedding a single tear after a playoff football loss or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I'm like, give the guy a day. I stayed out of that one. But the Brock thing, that's an example of a guy that probably didn't want to go to Detroit and probably ended up pretty happy to be there because it was a great place to play with Dan Campbell and that sort of thing. But
that's probably like what PJ Tucker felt like this morning. He sees, oh, James Harden's traded. He's finally gone. Yes. Yeah. Oh, shit. I got traded too.
You're on the same PJ. Did they get traded to the same place?
Yeah.
Worst plane ride. PJ Tucker. He's like, fuck, man. I love PJ Tucker. I hate the fact that he had to go with James, you know? But this could be one of these situations with Chase Young because he's up, right? Like, it's the same thing as Montez in Chicago. You have to make a decision on whether or not you want to pay this guy. You can worry about that later. That's what I would do. I wouldn't sign him to a big deal right now. And a lot of times, like these trades, you kind of get these deals done. They're not like quite NBA sign and trade things, but like you'll have a deal talked about and it's in good faith. And then they put the pen to paper when it gets done. I think if you're San Francisco, you want to be careful. I'm not comparing it to the D Ford trade, and I like D Ford. D Ford at one point was a very good rusher, and he had 13, I think, in Kansas City. Honestly, if D Ford doesn't jump off sides on that pick that went to, I forget who it went to, but the AFC Championship. This is one of the biggest hidden like Bill Buckner situations in the NFL. Pats don't win a ring that year. Aiden's in here. Aiden's a Pats fan.
Yeah, 2018 AFC Championship.
Brady's driving to win that game.
Reverse the Charvarius Ward interception that would have sealed the game.
The Ward interception. And the Ward interception would have sealed the game, but he's just offsides. And if it's not for that, I think he's a Super Bowl champion in Kansas City. He's a fucking superstar there. They love him. But how quickly things can turn. And then the next year, he's got to play San Francisco in the Super Bowl. He's got to play Kansas City in the Super Bowl once he gets shipped to San Francisco. So D Ford gets shipped to San Francisco. A week later, they signed him like a 5-year, $87 million deal, which to me seems like they kind of knew what they had to do to make that trade. They get him to this long-term deal. He's productive. That Super Bowl year, he has 6-7 sacks. For a guy who's just mostly playing third down, that's a tremendous return on investment just when it comes to like on the field. And when you're burning cash when you try to win a Super Bowl, you're not worried about down the line, but eventually down the line came and he wasn't healthy. And so like they were trying to get out of that deal, ended up retiring. He hasn't been in the league for a couple of years because he was hurt. And so like I guess the cautionary tale to me is like you have a guy with actual durability issues. Like I'm not saying Chase is going to get hurt again, but you've got a guy who's missed a lot of games. You're trading for him. Make it a rental with a chance to own. You know, like give yourself on the back end the flexibility to say, hey, maybe not for me. Maybe this marriage wasn't for us. Maybe this didn't make Nick Bosa that much more productive this year. Maybe it didn't really help our defense. Maybe we lost in the first fucking round of the playoffs and Chase has just been okay. At that point, you let him walk and go make a boatload of money because he will. Or maybe he loves it there. And I can guarantee you this, if you want Chase Young back in the offseason, he will want to be a 49er. Because if you want Chase Young back, that means the defense took the next step. That means he's been productive. That means he's playing opposite Nick Bosa, a guy from Ohio State who he absolutely loves and looks up to, from what I understand. He's with Hargrave. He's with Armstead. He's with that group of deep ends, you know, whether it takes pressure off Drake Jackson. It takes pressure off Randy Gregory. It takes pressure off these guys who are supposed to be Robins, but they're like the Penguin. You know, like I need a Robin for Nick Bosa, right? No disrespect. I'm just doing the Batman thing. If he can be the Robin, everybody else gets better. And those pressures for Nick Bosa turn into sacks because he's moving the platform. And I think you'll see the results. If I had to guess, this is going to help them. If he can stay healthy, this is going to help them. And you just avoid the D Ford situation. Hey, fuck, by the time you hear this tomorrow morning, they might have already signed him to a 5-year deal. I would think it would be unwise. Okay? And just because you have the option to wait and see. And again, what I said is like, this guy's been going to work every day in Landover, Maryland. No offense. But he's in San Jose hanging out with tech bros right now and playing with Nick Bosa. It's fucking 75 and sunny. I was looking at those shots as I was hemorrhaging cash Sunday of San Jose, some vacant streets, just top of a bunch of white buildings. I was like, I want to be there. Let's all move to San Francisco and do the operation there. That's what sunshine in November feels like. And so, like, I can't imagine Chase Young being like, yeah, I want to go sign with, I don't know, pick a miserable franchise because they paid him a bunch of money.
The Browns.
Well, I mean, there is something to signing with the Browns right now, but that would have been my answer, but they're actually good. I don't want to go sign with fucking Green Bay right now to rush opposite Rashawn Gary. Take that, for example. I don't know. There's power in playing in San Francisco. There's power in having Nick Bosa. There's leverage in having this defense. It's fucking cool to be on the Niners, man, right now. So I would just let it work itself out, see what happens, and then sign him. if you want to sign him. He's going to want to be there if you want him to be there. I think they look at this a little bit like the Von Miller trade. You know, you guys mentioned that coming into this show is like the Von Miller trade was a huge difference in why they won that Super Bowl. This could be a kind of catalyst with flexibility on the back end to have that guy on your team for longer. Frank Clark, we talked about Frank Clark. Hey, little things like I can remember in 2018, and this is a great point. Me and Nolan were talking about this earlier. The way I think about making a trade, and it's almost, I feel like we had this conversation in the Eagles locker room. I forget what they gave up for Golden Tate. Like,
I think it was like a 3.
A 3 or a 4. And it was 2018. We were trying to defend the title, and we needed another guy. We needed that kind of guy. And, you know, clutch, catch the ball at the sticks kind of guy, tough guy. It was for a 3. And Golden Tate came in, and he helped us. And more than anything, he kind of won us that Chicago game. Like, that's a playoff game. What is a playoff game worth to you as a GM? To me, it'd be worth, I don't know, a 2, a 3.
I was going to say second-round pick, yeah.
If you know that you're going to win a playoff game because of somebody, and hey, Howie's taken shots before, some that I thought would work out and didn't work out, the Robert Quinn trade. I feel like people basically thought I made that happen. I didn't make it happen. I just love the guy. I love the Eagles, and I was super happy it happened. Who would have thought 2 years removed from 20 sacks in Chicago on a bad team that he wouldn't be able to get on the field and make plays for the Eagles? It didn't work out, but it was worth taking a shot at, you know, it was a 4, right?
Low risk, high upside move.
And I thought he might be the guy to take the ball off somebody in the playoffs in the fourth quarter. And at that point, it's worth it. So I really like this move for San Francisco. I really do. And I understand, at least from a Josh Harris perspective, you're the process guy. You like stacking picks. And next year, we talked about this, you're probably going to have a new head coach. And that new head coach is going to want capital to make a decision. I mean, you can't have the new coach walk in the door and be like, hey, we got Chicken Man here for you. You check out some of the Eagles tape. I love Sam Howell, but you can't expect the next head coach to, so it's nice to have the flexibility. I don't hate this move. Lastly, Danielle Hunter did not get moved. I can't figure the Vikings out at all. Can't figure them out.
They want to win.
I don't know. They think they're good. Kevin, I love you. I took the under win total. Trust me. My Vikings win total, I'm like 4 in a row on this thing. Whatever side I'm on the right side. You're not supposed to be good this year. I respect the fact, because I've been on teams that were like 500 and about mid-season, you know, even after the loss of Kirk, like you still believe, like you try to believe. You talk yourself into believing. I just don't think this is – now, tell that to Minnesota. I'm not going to tell that to those guys in the locker room. It's like when I say Detroit might not be contenders, but they're really good. Like, I'm not going to walk into that locker room and be like, y'all aren't contenders. What the fuck do I know? It's all about how it plays out. I'm not going to walk into Minnesota's locker room and be like, hey, you guys aren't going to make the playoffs, so you might want to sell everybody. Those guys are living in a different world. We just throw shit around willy-nilly as fucking media people and say, oh, this team should trade this part. We're playing GM. We're playing tank. It's a tankathon. Tell that to some of these teams that just they decide they want to win games. These guys are playing for their livelihoods. They're putting their bodies on the line. Minnesota has every right to believe that they're a good football team, but they're not.
Unlike what you were saying with the Commanders, though, they do have an easy schedule.
They do have an easy schedule.
Like they play the Broncos, the Bears, the Raiders, the Packers, the Saints.
Okay, let me ask you something. You slide in the playoffs. Is it worth being in purgatory? We talked about this earlier. Purgatory in the NFL is the worst place to be. Nolan said you got to go through hell to get to heaven, okay? And if you go through purgatory, you're going to have to go down to the ground floor. Like at some point, you're going to have to go down to the lobby and deal with the devil. And I just don't think like Minnesota is thinking about things that way. They're smart. They're smarter than me. Like they know what they're doing. But from where I sit, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, and I understand.
Even if you think you're a good team, you can't think you're a contender. And that's the point.
That's the point. Like, what are you really trying to do? And so, like, for me, we've talked about this team maybe having to draft another quarterback next year and that sort of thing. At first, when they brought Dobbs on, I was like, oh, it could be a bridge. Yeah, this is telling. They're playing their hand a little bit. They want a bridge guy, that sort of thing. And they could still re-sign him next year to be a bridge, right? But he's up in 2024, so, like, this could be a rental. He also is a guy who picks up offenses really quick. Like, this, he's a chaos agent. Like, I'll never forget, this is part of the reason I'm afraid to bet Atlanta, although I lean that way, I just don't see it, is I'll never forget him against Tennessee, or with Tennessee, against maybe it was Dallas last year or something, Thursday Night Time Machine, heroic victory for your boy because Josh Dobbs showed up. Hey, Dallas, this year, Cardinals, Josh Dobbs showed up. Like, the run game more showed up, but like he keeps showing up in these spots where he fucks things up for anybody who took the other side of the bet. And I don't know if Kevin just really respects him and thinks he's the right guy to right the ship and keep because part of it is even when you lose, you got to keep people in it. And so, like, you know, maybe they think they're good. Maybe they think Josh Dobbs is going to help. But what I don't understand fully is Danielle Hunter not getting moved and getting something for the guy who leads the NFL in sacks, who you certainly don't need this year, and you have on this like really curious 1-year deal for $17 million. The only thing we can think of, because if they let him walk, they're going to get a 3 for that. The comp pick, they broke this down to me earlier. The top 5% at your position, you get a 3. If you let a guy walk in free agency and more guys walked than signed with you, then you're eligible to receive compensatory picks for guys in a certain echelon at their position. Okay, and I got something cleared up earlier, which is that like it is tiered. So the best they could get for Hunter is that top 5 percentile deal. If he gets the top of the market deal, which he certainly would somewhere else, they get a 3. You almost certainly could have gotten a 2 and some change for him, especially at the point that Montez Sweat garners a 2 from Chicago. So like I don't know if it was the timing of the day. I don't know if it was Bradley Chubb's deal last year. Thank you very much, Broncos, for fucking up Hunter going somewhere else. But like, I don't know if Hunter's agent's like, hey buddy, this is like the dude right now. And Chubb was like a 1 and some change. Like I need a couple 1s, or I need like a 1 and a 2 or something fucking really, that's a leverage play. And maybe Minnesota made it, and maybe everybody balked at it.
He's also such a high value guy. Like when Chubb, after they made that trade, he signed a $100 million extension a couple days later. Right. Like it might have been impossible to get to one of those kind of informal understandings about an extension.
I don't know, man. Like maybe they're going to tag him. Maybe they'll tag him and trade him. Maybe they'll tag him and pay him. Maybe Hunter is sitting there in the locker room like, Kirk, explain this shit to me. Like, how have you gotten so fucking rich? Oh, I signed a 1-year deal. They're going to tag me. Then eventually I get the free agency or I get traded, whatever it is. The tag's like $20 million for a defensive end next year. And that doesn't seem that bad to me considering some of the guys that are making $20 million in the NFL right now. I can remember when making, I don't even want to say it, I felt like I was the richest guy in the world. Now these guys are making more than double that. And, like all things told, I just don't know what to make about Minnesota. I don't. Like what's going to happen next year to Hunter? Why didn't somebody go get him? I think somebody fucked up. Whether it's Minnesota for not accepting a huge haul of picks, when you don't have a quarterback, you sell, right? Or it's like a Jacksonville. I'd really love to know, fly on the wall, what was talked about with Hunter, what phone calls were made, what did they ask for, and who wasn't willing to pay up. Because at some point, somebody internally is going to be sitting there like, we should have fucking traded for this guy. I don't know if it's in the AFC Championship when Jacksonville's playing Lamar or Patrick Mahomes or one of these guys or Tua. I don't know. It's going to be one of these situations where, and it might not be Jacksonville. It might have been somebody else. But it's not San Francisco because they went out and got a rusher. I don't know why Hunter sat where he did. Last person, Leonard Williams. Okay, this was one of the earliest trades. People were like, okay, we're going to get some big trades today. Leonard Williams, bright and early. Like, not a huge trade, but one that definitely is relevant. ended up being like this trade, as far as contenders go, is as important as any of the trades, because we're talking all day about the San Francisco 49ers. And trust me, I think they're scary when they're healthy. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. But the team that's that holds the number one spot in the NFC West right now is the Seahawks. So they're trying to win a fucking Super Bowl. Like, they're not just trying to make the playoffs. They're not waiting and seeing like Minnesota. Like, this team is in right now to win, and they also know what's in their way. And so, yeah, it's a steep haul, especially when you're not for sure that you'll be able to sign him. I think you make that trade knowing you can sign him. I don't think you ship a 2 and a 5 to New York just thinking how he's going to walk after the season.
Part of the two is the Giants eating 9.3.
That's part of it. $10 million basically the Giants agreed to pay on that deal.
Yep.
So maybe that's part of it, but I still think you got to feel like we can get this deal done. Pete Carroll said, I think he's going to want to be here, man. Like, when he gets I think he's going to want to be here. You know, like, I'm going to have him shooting baskets in the morning like Dan Quinn before meetings and shit. Like, he's going to love it. You walk outside, it's Pacific Northwest. Like, why wouldn't you want to be in Seattle? Well, it rains a lot. But I think Leonard Williams is going to want to be there. And so it's another situation where it's like, you've been in New York with Brian Dable. It's been awful. You're going to come in this building. There's going to be a lot of energy. You came from a place with good rushers. We got 2 dudes inside who are pretty good, right? We got Reed. We got Draymond Jones. We have Mafe outside, who I've compared to Cliff Averill from just a skill set standpoint. Like, he's just a bullet off the ball. He's an edge guy. Having a Leonard Williams inside shortens the edge. It's not an abstract concept. Having a guy who plays with power inside shortens the edge for edge rushers. So your pass rush is like a force multiplier. And in the run game, because you got San Francisco twice in like a month span coming up. These are going to be big games when it comes to home field advantage. They could be the difference between a Super Bowl and nothing for the Seahawks. Because if you get home field advantage, they're as good as anybody. The Seahawks, if they want to stop that run game, and they already know this because they have a good run defense, penetration kills wide zone. And penetration with a guy who, he's not just a runaround guy. He's not just a fucking backdoor guy. Leonard Williams is a big man who can set the edge from a 3 technique. I mean, watch his tape. There are plenty of plays where he's got that guard 4 yards in the backfield, and the edge is set. So, like, when you're playing San Francisco, we talk all the time about making moves to combat people in your division. I think this is like, it's good for you in general, but it also helps you get that much closer to being the best team in the NFC. Or the NFC West at least. So I don't think they're there. But if they have home field advantage, they're fucking scary. And they have to be having that conversation, at least to win the West.
It's good for the Giants, too. At least they're self-aware enough to know what they are. And unlike maybe the Raiders, they're a team that's willing to spend $10 million to help themselves acquire capital.
Yeah. And if I were the Giants, I would have absolutely shipped Saquon. It's easy for me to say. I don't know what you could have gotten for him. It sounded like it was a non-starter with the owner. I think the guy's awesome. I think the guy deserves to be somewhere else. I also think, like, you're not going to be able to get that sort of stuff for him down the line. Now, he's only on a short deal. But, like, I don't know what's going to happen with that. So, Giants, credit to them for at least selling a big defensive piece. And they have plenty of them on defense. Not plenty of them, but you've got a bona fide dog inside. You have a guy. Kayvon Thibodeau is second in the league in sacks right now, dude. Okay, Nolan? What? You could say it. He's passing. We think that might be a little bit of an aberration, but the guy's fucking playing well. Okay, like, you look up at the top of the list, and I open it up. I was like, Kayvon's got 8.5. Had 3 this weekend. Good for him. Good for the Giants, good for the Seahawks. That's all the trades today. This podcast is brought to you by Cash App, the all-in-one app for spending, sending, and setting easy-to-track savings goals. With multiple tools for saving, spending, and sending, Cash App is an all-in-one way to stay in control of your money. And Cash App has something very special for you. When you pay with the Cash App Visa card, you'll automatically enter for a chance to win a 5-star VIP trip to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. It's like catching a touchdown in the NFL without actually having to get hit. That's how you're going to feel. The best part is, the more times you pay between October 16th and November 9th, the more automatic entries you get for a chance to win. So whether you're buying yourself a lucky jersey or loading up on game day snacks, make the right play and pay with your Cash App Visa card. And who knows, you could find yourself at Super Bowl 58 thanks to Visa. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to U.S. residents 21 and up. Ends 11/9/23. For complete rules, visit cash.app/exclusives/footballdreams2023. That's cash.app/exclusives/footballdreams2023.
Auburn Hills, Michigan. Hello.
Good call. Good call. Steve was there.
Wow.
Steve was there.
Yeah.
Steve, how's Detroit?
First time being outside in Detroit. Usually it's just a stop at the old airport, Delta Terminal, and get on the run to the next plane and go. But I was actually fired up to see Ford Field just because the excitement level, where they're at, and like literally walking in, the security guys are like, "What do you think tonight? What do you think tonight?" I'm like, "What do I think tonight? This is wow. This is them." Real life Lions fans. Don't know many, but they are scarred from years of sucking. And it's really interesting to see. Scott and I were talking about on the plane home, like they don't know what to do. Like they're good. And like chants or even crowd noise, like I really think they're just so humbled from previous years that they're afraid to celebrate. And I got news for them. Let it all out, man. This team's legit. As banged up as they were last night and walking around the field, seeing Max Crosby pregame, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, dude.
God, that guy's awesome. The rookie, Wilson, holy moly, is he huge? Not
He's
sure
huge. Yeah,
how good he is.
Don't know yet.
But, had a chance to establish contact with Frank Ragnow years ago. When his dad passed and reached out when Bielema was the coach at Arkansas. So we've talked for a long time. First time to get him talking. He's in street clothes and he's banged up. Their other linemen's banged up. They don't have Montgomery. And you just see, again, Chris, we've talked about it forever. This team is a mentality and a mindset and a representation of their head coach. By all means necessary, we're going to get the job done. Now, on the other side, that team I think is trending to one of the worst teams in the league. They don't do one thing well besides Max Crosby lining up. And it's when you're in that situation and you have a vulnerable Detroit team and you can't do anything to take advantage of it, it's a credit to Detroit. They got game breakers. Jahmyr Gibbs came on after. Impressive dude. I thought it was really telling when he said it was frustrating, being a guy for his whole life and then getting to the league and not getting that chance. And now he gets the opportunity in week 8 on the biggest stage, and he does that. Like, that's just a credit. I mean, this organization, you see what they drafted. You see what the output of the rookies are. Their top 4 picks this year. Like, that is good stuff. And I thought Aikman was great talking about being a part of Dallas's rebuild, and he feels like, you got pieces here. You got a stud tackle. You got skill guys all over the place. You got a defensive end that you took with your first pick. I just think it's phenomenal to see. And honestly, those people don't know what to do. And I'm just let it all out, man. Enjoy it. Embrace the journey. You're on a bye. Dan said after the game, life is good. 6-2 going into a bye. Couldn't be happier for him. It was really, really cool. I like that stadium too. Pretty cool.
Well, listen, the first thing that jumps out at me is I was on the wrong side of this. Wrong side, Chris. Chase Long, whatever you want to call me. But you said the Lions were banged up. Vegas is missing Divine Diablo. Okay? So they were playing shorthanded too. Anyways, yep. I want to say this. Ford Field, 22 years, no playoff games. Mm-hmm. They're going to host a playoff game. Mm-hmm. And we talked a lot on this show about the need for them to host more than one playoff games. And when you look at the rest of their schedule, it's pretty good. I mean, for the Lions, Bears twice, Vikings twice, Broncos, Chargers, Packers, Saints, and Cowboys. So, the one thing about this team that's interesting to me is they have blown out the bad teams that they have played. Yep. 5 of 6 of their wins or whatever it is, double-digit wins. You have the Kansas City win in your back pocket. If you don't have that win, I think a lot of people are doubting them even more than they are right now. but I think this is a team that if they play at home and they're healthy, they are scary because their floor is high. Even though we looked at the Baltimore game, that's a road contest, outdoors, that sort of thing. They didn't have David Montgomery. If they're playing at home, I think their floor is high enough that they can go toe-to-toe with almost anybody. I still think Jared Goff has to play a little bit better in spots. Okay, like that's not taking anything away from Jared Goff. Big Jared Goff fan. Last night they asked Aikman, what can Jared Goff be for this team? And Aikman took a big second and was like, everything, you know? But the elephant in the room is that guy's got to play his best ball for them to win a championship. And that's a big one. And that's when you talk about like home field advantage, we're not making these concerns up about Jared. I mean, like outside in the elements, that's not where he plays his best ball come January. I think Ford Field would be a great place. And I was watching the game last night and Meg was like, these fucking Detroit people are crazy. Is it like Philly? And it's funny. They do have that edge to them. They do have that diehard kind of mentality. But the Michigan people have a different kind of edge. It's hard to describe.
It's also Halloween.
Yeah, it's also Halloween for sure. So we saw more costumes than usual.
Yeah.
But the Michigan edge is different than the Philly edge. They are similar fan bases in that, you know, they're going to die hard for that team.
Yep.
They're very passionate, blue collar, the whole city, the whole thing. But I think that because of what they've been through, the personality is a little different. And I'm glad you got to go see that in person.
Yeah, first, I think security getting in the building. I think it was Batman checking us in, and then you go through, and a lot of cigarette smokers outside.
Yeah, no question.
Where our trucks were. I didn't realize we were in
Dart
cigarette
City.
heaven.
Dart City.
No, it's really weird because, you know, our security guys were telling us, you know, Arrowhead only has one tunnel. They named another one. And all these new stadiums, you have multiple tunnels, so you have, you know, media going one way, locker rooms one way. We literally walked through the crowd to get down to the field because of where our trucks were outside the dome and the tunnel being all the way on the other side where the locker rooms were. And you go through this, like, little gate, and you see, you know, they let the fans down on the field if you have the right passes pregame. So we're walking down, and it gets like there's this little fence in the rotunda, and then you go around that. So it's kind of like dark. It's by the bathrooms. And I literally got the shit scared out of me when I turned the corner. It's just this guy in a Lions jersey, hat, but he had the Michael Myers mask on. And I was like, what the hell is that? And this is like, I don't know, 7 o'clock. Like, it's an hour before kick. And I'm just like, I was.
Do I want to go down this hallway?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this is the only way? We got to go down this way?
Yeah.
So it was, it was full force. I mean, the lion heads, you know, Chris, you had the dog mask forever.
They put on full lion heads.
Yeah. Like, I
It's
can't,
incredible.
like, dudes are just dripping in
Multiples,
sweat when they take it
yeah.
off to pound their tall boy in Miller Lite. Like, it was a scene. But again, like, I could see it in their faces that they've gotten ahead of their thoughts and their feelings on a couple wins in past years of all this misery. You know, Barry Sanders is on the show, just an absolute legend. And to think that building, as you said, never hosted a playoff game, that's going to change this year, and I couldn't be happier for him. That's an all-timer fan base that I haven't seen have success in my life. You know, especially since Barry. I mean, that was the only blip.
It's crazy the power vacuum that exists when Aaron Rodgers leaves, and I know Detroit was making steps and beat that team last year and that sort of thing. But like, you know, you get the Aaron Rodgers situation in Green Bay; they're awful. Chicago's got their issues. Obviously, that's not a good football team, and Justin Fields hurt. And then Kirk Cousins tears his ACL last week, and it's like it's all laid out there for you. Achilles, sorry. He'll be back in a few weeks, according to Kyle and Nate on Monday, because they saw Aaron Rodgers throwing. Can we stop with this?
No,
I mean, like,
people can't. They can't.
They can't. It's just like, oh, well, he's going to be back. It's pretty impressive. He's throwing a ball on the sideline. Well, no quarterback, whoever tore his Achilles, took the time every week to go throw on the sideline. So, of course, it's a first for you. But the Lions, what impressed me about them this game is 2 weeks ago, they had a lead in Tampa, and they threw the ball 40-something times. And you're like, where's this run game? You have to have a second layer to it with Montgomery out. And I don't think the plan for them was to give Gibbs the ball 30 times at this point in the season. I think this was let's roll him out as the season goes on, and if he has to be a feature back, we make him a feature back. But he really was a feature back last night, and everything they did was inside run. Gibbs bounced it a couple times, and that's where he can be really dangerous.
Yes.
But I thought that was like a telling sign that not only they believe in him to be that feature back, take a full game's workload, but also run it into the teeth of the defense constantly. And I think what's good about him is he's a smaller guy. You look at him, you think a guy you split out, a guy you hit the perimeter with, but he's downhill. I mean, he does not take much time in the backfield before he hits a hole. That touchdown, the spot that he fit his body into was about the size of you crack a door open. That's where he fit. And then the bounce.
Yeah, to get lateral
speed.
And then get vertical is –
he jump cut into that hole, and the hole's about this big. So I'm really impressed with Gibbs. I think all, rock fights or not rock fights, these games on Thursday night or Monday night, we complain about them. But they all give us something. You tell me any game last year. Somebody last night, I tweeted this last night, somebody was like, okay, do Broncos Colts. That was the Baron Browning game. It was also so ugly I couldn't look away. Every one of these primetime games gives us something. I'll always remember this is the Gibbs game. But I think for the Lions, they had trouble in the red zone without Montgomery. The last game I'm talking about in Tampa Bay, but also last night, right? Goal to go 3 times, 3 field goals. I mean, they have to fix that. It can't just be, Montgomery's out, because guess what? These things happen. So I think maybe you go sign the girl that pulled Montgomery into the stands.
Or they pulled Gibbs
into
in.
the stands. Yeah.
That was impressive.
She's strong.
Yeah.
I mean, really strong. I think it's great for Detroit. And on the other side of things, and one thing I want to mention with Detroit is Aleem McNeil, who sometimes when a player who people don't pay a lot of attention to has a big game in prime time, it's like a coming out party. And anybody who's watched the Lions all year knows that, Hutchinson gets a lot of credit, but this guy is their second best dude. And, I'm not saying in total, because I think Brian Branch is a great player and all that stuff, and they've got some good players in the back end. But Aleem McNeil up front is a huge deal, and he had a great game. I thought Aaron Glenn called a great game. But on the other side of it, the Raiders are trash. And this time of year, it sucks because, well, it doesn't have to suck. We're going to talk about locks in a little bit and that sort of thing. But the last 2 primetime games I've taken dogs catching a ton of points. Mistakes. This is a time of year where teams pull away. And, if you can spot these bad teams before people get keen to it, you can make some money. That's advice I'd give you Monday morning quarterbacking. But, the Raiders are cooked, man. Jimmy G, the most aggressive thing they did. And I was on the wrong side of this thing, because you could take all this red zone stuff away and Detroit wins this thing going away. But in the circumstance of the game, there's the cover on that deep ball to Devontae Adams.
Devontae could have a 95-yard touchdown and a 70-yard
touchdown. I mean, and this is the most aggressive thing you did last offseason as a team was bring in Jimmy G. So it doesn't feel like they're trying to win from a roster standpoint. Like you said, Max Crosby is it defensively for them. And I want to make this point. He might be, and pay attention to the words I use because people love to extrapolate and they don't pay attention. Disruptive. He might be the most disruptive guy in the NFL down in and down out. He had 8 tackles last night. There are multiple TFLs where he's unblocked. And so, you're kind of like their layups, but I've tried to make those layups. For 11 years, I tried to make those layups. They are tough layups to make. You have to have the pre-snap awareness, but then the explosiveness and the playmaking ability that I think really separates him in the run game is he can make plays in the run game, like that chase down play, like dropping the reverse for 6 yards, and everything he does in pass rush. And he does all this with the least help around him. Name your favorite defensive player in the league. There's nobody that has less help than Max Crosby. And so as we talk about defensive player of the year and that sort of thing, I don't know if he'll have the numbers, and I don't know if he's on the team or in the market. But this guy is as good as anybody at affecting a football game, and he does it alone. So,
and without getting a blow.
Without getting a blow. I said this last night. I texted you. It's like he's from 2005. And I mean that to say, there's guys that are throwbacks, and you're like, they're from the 70s, they're from the 80s. I feel like this guy's got all the shit to him that a post-2000s NFL player has, but he's got that old CBA attitude. He's
Freeney.
playing 80 snaps a game.
Strahan.
Yeah.
Jason Taylor.
Something.
Okay.
But he's a dog. He's a dog. He doesn't come off the field. He's a throwback. But he's built for the modern game, and I just love him. So hats off to him, and hats off to really that defense for hanging in there, because that was tough, and they were going to run the ball 40 times, and they hung in there for a while. But I got to wonder what Tom Brady's advice is, because he's like an advisor to Mark Davis, right?
Oh.
And an advisor to Josh McDaniel, and he's got to go in or hop on a conference call this week and be like, yeah, you want to bench that guy, Jimmy G. Like that's his buddy and everything. But I don't see where this is going, and I've got a lot of respect for Jimmy. It's like that first fucking series, he's got a bad back. He's running the sticks. He puts his back into the guy at the sticks, and he's scratching and clawing. I have so much respect for Jimmy, but I just don't think he's it right now for them. And I don't know who is it or what they're trying to do. So the Raiders, I feel for you.
Worst team in the league?
I don't want to overreact.
Okay. Good call.
Listen, they play the
Giants at home next week.
They play the Giants at home, and then they play the Jets in prime time 2 weeks from now. What's the total in that game? Oh, this is tough. Tough if you're a Raiders fan.
Is 37.5.
Yeah. Well, it
So
might be lower
Jets,
in prime
Jets
time.
is going to be like 34.5.
Yep, depending on what happens next year. And when we talk about, like right now as we're recording, because we have Halloween shit.
Yep.
We're all dads. It's 12:40 in the afternoon. So a lot's going to happen between now and 4 o'clock. Steve and I were talking about this before he got on. But like year to year, it just depends. Like sometimes you think a bunch of things are going to happen and they don't. I was looking back at some of the last year's trades around the deadline and that sort of thing. First off, I want to ask you guys this. This came from Reddit. This is about the Deshaun Watson trade. 24 games into an 85-game contract. It's a 5-year deal, $230. Everybody knows the details. They gave up 3 1s, a third, 2 4s. They've got 5 wins with Watson on the field. 9 of 10 of those, actually 8 of 10 of those, he's below league average in a lot of the metrics that you want to look at. When you look at quarterbacks, so he's playing below average in most of those games. The return on investment's been 5 wins. Before the end of this contract, are we going to be able to say with certainty it's the worst trade in NFL history?
I sure think so.
As a Broncos fan, yes.
Yeah, you like that. It's just like considering.
Well, and the Texans are 3-4.
Yes, and the Texans have been getting fleeced for years. I mean, they gave up D-Hop and woke up the next day without a first-round pick. It's like, so I look at this trade and I just say, considering the context of the franchise and what they've been after for what feels like 30 years, a quarterback that, we can trade in our jersey with all the names on it and just buy this quarterback's jersey. Not only do you roll the dice on a guy with a bunch of cases on his head and civil cases and that sort of thing. So from a moral standpoint, it's kind of like icky, but it's football. It's icky as fuck on the field too. I mean, this might be the worst one in history before it's all said and done. Now, he could remember how to play football down the stretch here, get healthy. He could do that next year. He could do that the year after that. But as it sits right now, if this trend continues, I can't think of a worse trade.
5 wins, 6 picks.
It's wild.
All of it fully guaranteed.
Now, a little update on Derrick Henry. This is interesting because we talked about this a lot last week, Steve. Mm-hmm. We said Henry to Baltimore. Not the only one saying it, but
yep.
It would have been great. It still could happen. This is from Cole Jackson on Twitter. He's quote tweeting Schefter.
You're all over the internet today, man.
I am on the internet.
Yeah.
It's trade day. Schefter said yesterday that the potential for a deal diminished because they didn't hit the deadline to restructure his deal. I guess he's got 5 left on his deal. Evidently, there was a deal in place. This, according to Cole Jackson. He's a freelance Baltimore. It's hard with these blue checks now. I don't know who's who. But evidently there was a deal in place, but it was vetoed by the owner. And Amy Adams denies this claim. But it kind of makes you wonder if that's really what's going on there. I know they were asking a lot for him, it sounds like. But these owners got to get out of the fucking way if that's the case. And it's the same thing in New York. I felt like Saquon was never even on the table because Mara has a thing for him. You love the guy. you're going to get him killed, and he's going to play for nothing in New York. So I don't know what you make of that, Steve, but I still feel like if you want to trade Henry, now's the last opportunity you have to get something good for him.
Yeah, and then you come out in the great uniforms and Will Levis plays the game of his life, and it's like, oh, wait, maybe we do have a chance. You're looking around the conference. Yeah, I look at the situation, right, and that's the problem in this league is the situation feels like it changes every 3 to 4 days. We just went through the Commanders, lack of hope and how promising it was. So you've been on this, as the situation, the timing of it all. If not now, when? I agree.
Yeah,
I don't see much in the way you look at what you have moving forward. There's too much that is out of your control. You know what I mean? Like you're already behind the 8 ball with your record. So therefore, now you're relying on teams to lose and you're not even confident in your own self with the schedule you have moving forward. So I'm in agreement. If not now, when? Just let it go.
This is it.
I know we off-season or in-season trade, but like now with the way he's playing, where's the A.J. Brown trade?
Yeah, dude.
I mean, good
Lord. Also, Tennessee fucking ships A.J. Brown away for nothing, and now I know you don't want to repeat the mistake, but this is the wrong guy to try not to repeat the mistake with.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
this is the situation. You do ship a great player.
But then Baltimore goes and wins a Super Bowl with Derrick Henry, and it's going to be A.J. Brown part 2.
Exactly.
And you worry about your own legacy.
You worry about the legacy, so it's tricky and that sort of thing. And if you're Derrick Henry, I got to feel for the guy because he'll never say it, but and maybe he wants to be a lifetime Titan and that sort of thing, and he's built such a great legacy in that city, and he's synonymous with the franchise. I can't think of too many guys who are more synonymous with that franchise than Derrick Henry. I mean, when you look up, it's Eddie George, it's McNair, it's Derrick Henry, it's guys like that. But I gotta feel like he wants to be somewhere else, and that's just a guess, and he's got to sit there today, and maybe he knows what's being done on the phone, but it's got to be a long day for him and a long weekend going in. Sunday, suiting up, playing, worried about getting hurt, worried about that. It's just crazy what goes on this time of year. And as promised, last year's trades, okay, I want to revisit a couple of them because this is kind of funny. Because when they grade these trades in the beginning, it's always like, it's a fucking toss-up.
Bears have Claypool? That's exactly what Justin Fields needs.
Exactly. And when we talk about the Bears making a trade that they hope works out in their favor, we talked about Claypool. And I liked the trade when it happened, hand up. I was like, get this guy a weapon. I buy guys low, like I'm with that. But a 2 for him turned into Joey Porter Jr. It's tough. So, like, here's one last year that the Lions got shit on for the Hawkinson trade.
This is the best one.
This is maybe the best one because they don't have to pay him, and they get They get a 23 second-round pick and a 24 conditional fourth-rounder. You know who they picked in the second round in 2023?
Well, with their own pick, Sam Laporta, and then with this one, Brian Branch.
So, like, you got your tight end anyways, and then you go get a real plus on defense.
Incredible.
I mean, and we're not even talking about what Brad Holmes and Dan did in the first round, which was the guy last night who they just had stashed.
Yeah,
and ran for like 160 in a game that they probably don't win if he's not on the field. That's another thing about the Lions last night. Like somebody asked me how I feel about the Lions. I told you everything I told you earlier in the show, and somebody who's a little more cynical said they lose to a good team tonight. Like that's like, and that's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have Sam Laporta, who caught 6-7 balls last night, you got Gibbs, you got all these guys that stepped up with other guys down. It speaks to the depth and what they've been able to do in the draft and that sort of thing. So that was a big one that got shit on right off the bat. But I think it's a win for the Lions. And like I'm looking at the Bradley Chubb trade as well because this was one that like the Dolphins felt like contenders. They are. Chubb and a fourth rounder in 24 to the Dolphins for Edmonds and a 2023 first round pick. The Dolphins lost this trade. Is there any, I like Bradley Chubb a lot. I really enjoy the guy, watching him play. He's physical, all that stuff. But like when you go ship that kind of capital, he better be like an elite pass rusher. And that's a tough deal. And now they've been able to survive that because they have other guys that have played. I mean, I talk about the importance of Jalen Phillips. I mean, they nailed that. He's such a good player.
Yeah.
And Chubb's a good compliment to him, but they gave up a lot to go get the guy. And when they traded for him, I think he was averaging 2 pressures a game at that point. So they kind of bought the guy low, and it's just kind of stayed the way it is. So that was another interesting one from last year. I don't remember. That happened at the deadline?
It did.
Yeah.
And then the Broncos unloaded that pick for Sean Payton.
And it turns into Sean Payton.
Right.
So if you like Sean Payton and you think an NFL head coach is important, you know, they basically got Sean Payton for Bradley Chubb.
We actually had Chubb booked for the show that day, and then he got traded.
He got traded. Yeah. And again, like Bradley Chubb, I always talked him up on this show, but like when you're talking about trades, we're just talking about value. Okay, so I'm not going to hold that against the guy. He is who he is, and he's a good player. But that's a lot. And so I look at that one. I look at Ridley to the Jags. I love this. I love it. The Jags just it's a great move. It's paid off, even if it's been inconsistent this year. Like, they're definitely better. And I project through the year what they're going to look like in January. They're definitely better than they were last January with him on the team. And Ridley goes to the Jags for a 2023 conditional 5th and a 2024 conditional 2nd. That's a low second-round pick. So, you know, it's not like the Falcons are making out like bandits on this trade.
No,
I think Jacksonville made a great move here. So I would grade that one, whatever, A+, A-, something like that. The McCaffrey trade's interesting because really you're looking at what they got for him. They're all on the team now, right? Pretty much. Mingo, DJ Johnson, Chandler Zavala. So, Nolan, you can speak to this better than I can, but how have these guys been doing?
Zavala has played some in spots, coming along. Mingo is exciting, but I think for them it made sense. It made sense for the Niners to take McCaffrey. Obviously, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink in that offense.
It's crazy to give up a ton for a running back and still win in today's NFL. I mean,
That's the system. That's the system that'll do it.
That's the system that'll do it. And we always talk about like trading for a running back. Either you're a contender, you need one more piece, or it's got to be a system. And I think they won that trade. The last one, I want you to tell me how you feel about this. Robbie Chosen. That's kind of a wild one to think somebody went out and got him. I know it was just like a 7.
The Cardinals for a 6 and a 7.
6 and a 7.
Hey, 1 reception this year for 68 yards and a touchdown.
That's crazy. Yeah, his slugging percentage is up there. The Tony trade.
See ya.
Is so tough to fucking. You're happy, right?
Yeah.
But so are the Chiefs, because I think if they don't have Tony, they don't win a Super Bowl. And it's the most confounding thing because they can't get anything out of the guy. And I've been so into his upside, but when you hear about the kind of prep guy he is, the kind of guy he is in the building, like that's the double-edged sword. And I don't think he's talented enough to outweigh those negatives. But they kind of get a ring out of that move. So that's a rare win-win a year later. It's just interesting.
There's a few teams in history that have added like a small piece that put them in the Super Bowl. Your win with the Pats, you got Van Noy from the Lions to fill out that defense.
That was a big one.
And then your dad's Super Bowl with the Raiders, they got Mike Haynes for just a handful of picks, who was a Hall of Fame corner.
Oh, wow. And then, like also, I alluded to this the other day, but the year we won the Super Bowl with Philly, and a lot of the reason I think maybe Howie might be active today to grab a Dalvin Cook type guy, we'll see. You probably heard it in the Open because I record the Open later today when all the trades come in. But like Dalvin Cook would be a nice piece. Howie added Jay Ajayi our Super Bowl year. Right. It was like, we got LeGarrette Blount. We have Corey Clement. Why add another running back? It's good to have a stable. So we'll see what happens the rest of the day. I hate buying tickets. I've been playing my whole life, never had to worry about buying tickets. The ticket part is stressful. The game's stressful. The ticket part's really stressful. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. And with the Game Time app, it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. If I'm trying to see the monster trucks for my kids or Willie Nelson for me and my kids, I can find it all in the Game Time app. Game Time's the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code GREENLIGHT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code GREENLIGHT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's talk about college football.
Let's do it.
I'm hearing this is just an amazing weekend.
It's pretty. I NFL slate very good too. But yes, we have 12 Power 5 matchups between winning teams, 14 overall in the FBS level. And when you get to this stretch, obviously you look down and you especially, Chris, always want good games, good matchups.
Yes,
you need a little buy-in. You need a little reason to sit down and turn Mario Kart off the big screen and tell the boys to sit down and let's watch some ball.
Well, Waylon's really into college football, and he's also really into being on the other side. Like any game that I'm on, he's asking me who I'm pulling for. He goes. I forget what he says. Who'd you? It's not the word bet. It's like a different word. He doesn't quite understand it. I was explaining lines to him last night. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And then he just takes the other side. You know, it's fucking yeah. So,
that's a real easy way to find your way up to your room, Waylon.
Exactly, dude. But yeah, I mean, like before we get into the preview, how was Salt Lake City?
You get drunk?
Yeah, did you get drunk?
No, you can't in Utah. It's impossible.
Like you really can't?
No.
What do you
I'm
mean?
just kidding. It's
okay. What's it like?
Yes. He was plastered. He's on it.
It's one of those places you have to actually experience, right? I mean, when you fly in there, the mountains are right there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the thing that's cool about Utah, Salt Lake City, is airport's 10 minutes from the city, and you're in a big city, you know? You walk around, you got your big steakhouses, you got your Morton's, you got your Capitol Grill, you got your Cheesecake Factory. Shout out to the beer bar.
Ruth Chris,
I believe, is there too.
Walk City.
But, I mean, off in the distance, you see Park City, you see the mountains. Again, it's absolutely gorgeous. I have not vacationed there. I'm not a skier, but obviously now everybody just saying, yeah, go to Colorado, go to Breck, and go to Aspen. You know, we'll keep our little Utah to ourselves. But it's just really cool. And, you know, you got the Jazz and the Utes. Those are the only shows in town. And Rice Eccles is really, really good. Now, it wasn't good after Oregon went up 7-0, but before that, it was ready to pop. Game day was absolutely incredible. We were down like on this rolling lawn, and being low, all you see when you look into the crowd is the signs and everybody up front. So when we went back to do the field goal with Pat and Herbie, that you really got a sense of how many people were there. Like we just kept walking and walking, and you're going through people, and it was just really cool. Like they brought it. I mean, I think it was 29 degrees when I went out there for my first SportsCenter hit with our guy Randy Scott. And you know, the other thing is like sunrise, whatever it is, 7:12. That thing don't get over those mountains for like an hour.
Right.
So you can see, you know, the skyline. But you're like, come on, man, we need that sun up here because your feet start freezing. But no, fun as hell. Blown away. Really, really impressed with Oregon and what they've looked like since that loss to Washington and what Washington has done since beating Oregon. So when I move that and fast forward to the rankings, I think there's a couple things to look out for that are super interesting, and that's, does Georgia's past reflect their ranking in this first one? Meaning, are we still have this image of back-to-back national championships, and do they get credit for it? Or are we going resume-based and looking at the teams that have multiple ranked wins, like an Ohio State and like a Florida State, and are they ranked ahead of Georgia and Michigan? I think they should be, but I don't think they will be. And the other thing is, how are the one-loss ranked teams now? Because when you look at the one losses, Oregon with the loss to Washington, Texas with the loss to Oklahoma, Oklahoma with the loss to Kansas, Bama with the loss to Texas, how are we going to stack those people up, and can they make it up? Because now I think the Big 12's in trouble. If everybody runs the table, if Oregon runs the table, they're going to the playoff. If Texas or Oklahoma do, I'm not so sure now, because you got to figure one of the Big Ten's getting in. You got to figure the SEC's getting in. And Florida State, if they run it, like one of them's getting left out. And now that we've played more games and we're in the conference play, I think the Big 12 is in the most dangerous spot of not making the playoff because of what's panned out and what's ahead.
Steve, have you tried that field goal? That kid was getting clowned this week, but he nearly made it.
He did. The second one hit the middle of the stanchion. What do you call the post? When it's one out of the ground, the one pole out of the ground. That's right in the middle. The base. Yeah, he hit it dead in the middle of the base. Like, he hit the base.
Have you tried that kick?
I have not tried it.
For fear of missing it?
Falling. Like, that turf is, like, frozen, and I just know with sneakers, it's a no-win situation. But it is absolutely fantastic. The excitement it brings, the energy, the amount of people that it's kind of funny that are rooting against the kick, and then the people that are rooting for the kick, you'd be surprised how many people are like, no chance, no way. But it's been a ton of fun. And yeah, he was getting clowned. He did have cowboy boots on to start the show and traded out. So I thought that was a smart move. So yeah, we'll see what Tuscaloosa brings, because we did not do the field goal on the quad at Alabama last time, so this will be the first time there. So open to
Ryan Russillo invited me to Tuscaloosa. Okay, Now I don't have enough money to get down there after this past weekend, but if I were to get down there, I feel like I want to get down there for a day game so you can go out afterwards. 7:45. That game's going to finish about 11:15. What time do the bars close in Tuscaloosa?
6:45 local, because we're on Central Time.
Oh God, that's a big
and
difference.
I believe we turn the clocks back.
Man, I could bet the under Thursday night.
There you
go.
go.
And then get down there.
There you go.
We do turn the clocks back.
We turn the clocks back.
It's got like 2 extra hours.
Damn, dude.
That makes it. That gets you a full day on the quad, which is absolutely spectacular. You factor in, you got LSU coming to town. That's a whole nother level that the quad will be raised to. And in that stadium, those two teams, I really find it fascinating how Alabama fans have this stature, this arrogance. And when, their rivals Auburn, obviously, but they won't admit it, but they despise LSU.
Yeah.
Like they just the way LSU goes about it, there's more bravada.
They're flashier.
They're more fun too.
They are. I can't say that for sure about Bama people because I haven't been down there. But when I've gone to a Sugar Bowl, like you just hang around and eventually you run into some LSU fans and they kind of adopt you the whole weekend and just take you around and get you drunk and act like you're one of theirs. I love the LSU people.
Yeah, there's nothing better. So then, like the fact that they're invading their town is really spectacular. And when you go back and look a couple. Obviously you got the Burrow game in 19, and in 21, Coach O had no reason to be in that game, and they gave Alabama all they could. So when you factor this in, the way Coach Saban is, the way treats this LSU game, and LSU coming in with Brian Kelly, who's never afraid to talk about how confident he is in his team. You have Jaden Daniels, who I believe is the Heisman frontrunner right now, and then you have Alabama, who's back to the defensive mindset. I think it makes for a fantastic matchup. I do think Alabama has the goods to slow down LSU, and I think LSU's defense is not up to par, and the struggles that Milroe has had, I believe Alabama's gotten better and better offensively, so I like Alabama in the game right now.
How about Missouri, Georgia? 15.5 in Athens, 54.5 is the total. Where do you lean?
I saw this posted on my flight home Saturday night at 18.5, and I took Missouri. I just think it's too much. Now, last year, Missouri had Georgia in Columbia. Like, they had them, and Stetson Bennett pulled one out of his hat, and they got the run game going late, and they got out of there with a must-win. But now you look at the matchup, and all credit to Georgia. They are ascending at the right time. They've had a bunch of guys out. We know that Bowers is out. But Carson Beck is a guy that's shown that he deserves this opportunity. In this day and age of guys sitting out and looking to go elsewhere, I mean, the kid stuck it out. I give him all the credit in the world. And now he's got Ladd McConkey back. Ra-Ra's back healthy. He does have Delp at tight end, who's, a shell of Brock Bowers, but he's still a threat to go vertical. They get the running back. They should have Mims, the left tackle back, who's a possible first rounder in the NFL. So I looked at Georgia before last week. So they had Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, and at Tennessee. One of those games is going to be a fight, and I just can't figure out which one it's going to be. I would be willing to bet it's going to be this one. The issue I have is Missouri being able to get to Beck. They're pretty good on the back end, but you saw them struggle against LSU not being able to get to the quarterback, and that a lot of that had to do with Jaden Daniels' elusiveness, and Beck's not that kind of guy. So that's the matchup, is what can Missouri do to not let guys get behind them, keep everything in front. You got to tackle. I mean, you saw Ladd McConkey with the catch and run last week. The thing about Georgia, they put so much pressure on you with the horizontal running game and then the guy's ability to get vertical. They create so much space with that system. You got to be able to tackle. I believe Missouri has the goods to hang around for the game, so I like Missouri plus the points.
Missouri was up 39-35 on LSU with 5 minutes to go. They could be 8-0 right now. Eli.
I don't watch him enough to play this game. Know, if you'd have told me it was still 18.5 or something, yeah. I'd tell you, but 15.5, I don't know. Washington, USC, Pac-12 special here. USC's catching 3.5 at home. The total 76.5. What's wrong with USC? And is this a buy low spot?
Ooh. For one game, I believe so. Because when you look at Washington, I'm not sure if McMillan's going to be back, and that's what it comes down to for me, is Washington seeing what they looked like at full strength and walking out of that game against Oregon. I wasn't sure if they were the better team. They won the game. Lanning has talked about his decisions that he made in that game that proved to be costly. But I said before, look at what they've done since, and look what Washington was a perfect hangover spot after that win, and they get a pick 6 to beat Arizona State, and they go to Stanford and just absolutely go nuts in a shootout, scoring 40+. The defense wasn't there, and Stanford's a team that doesn't have much on offense at all, and their quarterback throws for 400 yards, and they drop a fourth down pass where they're going in for a score to take the lead. Giles Jackson is a receiver for Washington too. He looks like he's going to be doubtful. So I look at SC. I went against them last week with Cal just because I like the spot, knowing what they look like the 2 previous weeks and getting their doors blown in by Utah in that run game. But both teams are going to be able to do whatever they want offensively in this game. When you look at it, you got Penix, you got Caleb. I get Penix is the front runner. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. But if there's ever a time where USC could pull this off, it's this, in an instance where it's just going to be offense on offense. USC did a great job of creating turnovers. They were down 14 in the second half twice last week against Cal and came back and won. The over-under is 76.
It's wild.
In this game.
And I got to ask you, not that I love betting overs and unders at 76.5, but there is one number I'm looking at this weekend that I really like, and it's crazy that it's the same sport. Iowa, 29.5 at Wrigley Field. I want to bet the under so bad, Steve. What do I do? Should I wait for it to get bet up? Or should I just
because I don't think it's going to go lower.
You don't think it's going to go lower?
No.
Yeah, you think it's going to go higher?
I see it at 31 right now.
Good.
God.
I like that under. Smash it at 31, right?
I remember being at a game. Illinois played Northwestern at Wrigley, and you can only go one way because the end zone, there's not enough room in one of the end zones. So that tells me the field is shorter.
Yep.
So maybe that affects the over-under. But if you love the under, go with the under. I don't see how you can.
How is it the same sport? I mean, you could almost put that total in twice. The delta between USC and Washington's total and that total, where it opened up. I mean, it's insane. So is there any way that game's on at the same time?
They are not.
Put them on two screens and just. I mean, it's a
put
big
them on
world
two
out
screens,
there.
Figure out all your technical stuff, and Macon will send you a T-shirt.
Okay, cool. All right, Kansas State,
listeners.
Texas, 25 against 7 in the rankings, and then Texas is laying 4 points at home, 51.5 is the total.
Interesting, isn't it? 7 versus 25. 7's only a 4-point favorite at home. I get it. Malik Murphy's going to quarterback again for Texas, who's a kid we talked about. I think he's only going to get better with reps. The problem is with Kansas State, it's a great coaching staff with Kleiman. They stumbled early, and now you look at what they've done in their last 3 games. They score 38, then they score 41. They shut out Houston and Coach Holgorsen 41-0 last week. And what they're doing is getting back to that balance on offense. When you look at, they played 2 quarterbacks with Will Howard, Avery Johnson's, a guy that came in the week before and led them to a win. But Howard goes 15 of 17. Avery Johnson goes 5 of 6. They rush for 179. They throw for 215 against a bad Houston team. And the thing with Kansas State is that style, that balance, and the way they play travels. It's not dependent on, if it's bad weather, they're not going to be able to throw the ball. It's a very balanced. But I look at what the defense has done, in that, giving up 0, giving up 3, and only giving up 21 to Texas Tech their last 3 games out. So I think it's a dangerous spot for Texas. The question is what the Texas defense will do in this matchup against that balance. When you look at Texas's defense, they only allow 97 rush yards a game. So that's, we've talked about that Texas D-line all season, and that's what it comes down to. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think Kansas State will try and keep that offense, Texas and Malik Murphy, off the field. And they do a good job of keeping stuff in front of you, too. They don't allow big plays or guys to get behind you. But I've been awful with totals in college football this year, and I would lean towards the under, so take the over.
All right. And then lastly, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State in Stillwater, catching 6 points at home are the Pokes. They call them the Pokes, right?
Yeah.
All Cowboys, any Cowboys, they just call them the Pokes. 61.5 is the total. And I watched a little Oklahoma State last week because I needed Cincinnati to close out a big parlay. That would have been nice.
45-13.
They are as advertised, not good, Cincinnati, and they hung around a while. But what do you make of this game?
Well, it's the last time. I think it's 117 years they've played. Gundy's talked about not wanting anything to do with them going forward, with them going to the SEC, and that conversation's kind of been put on hold. But you can't talk about Oklahoma State without bringing up Ollie Gordon II. I mean, this kid is put in a sentence now with Barry Sanders with 2 games over 250 yards. He's going for 25 for 271 against Cincinnati last week, 29 for 282 against West Virginia the week before, 6 touchdowns combined. He's got the goods. They've done a great job with that split zone, with that GT scheme. They do a lot of misdirection with the run game, and it's just a credit to Gundy. I don't know if any team got violated out of the portal more than they did, and to be able to come back and look awful at the beginning of the year, and now to put together all these wins, 4 straight. They beat Kansas. They beat Kansas State. They beat West Virginia in Morgantown. They come home. They play Cincinnati, and now they get the rival at home coming off their loss. And Oklahoma sounds like they're pretty banged up. It feels like everybody's just going to expect Oklahoma to bounce back here. I would be wary of that. I think Oklahoma State could keep this close with that run game, and I think it's a field goal game. The question is Dillon Gabriel. We saw how good he was with that run against Texas, but it's because Texas was in a lot of man coverage, and he just saw those guys chasing, and he just dropped back, and he was gone. Almost, it looked like a quarterback draw, but it wasn't. It was just him being smart with the football. So I'd be wary here of laying the points, knowing what's at stake and what Oklahoma and how they're going to react off their first loss of the season. So it's a great matchup. That place will be nuts. I still can't believe how there's no room on the sidelines where they have those walls and they have.
Dude, it's insane.
It's nuts.
It's like I go a couple years without like really sinking into an Oklahoma State game.
Yep.
And then I watch a game in Stillwater, and it's like Arena League football.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is.
What were they doing when they designed that stadium?
Oil. Oil.
More space for oil. Yeah.
Less sideline, more oil.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of scheduling, the ACC releases schedules for the years
Crazy.
2024 through 2030.
Yeah.
I can read it.
The headline is, the Stanford Cardinal will be in Charlottesville in the fall of 2025.
Can't wait.
Come on.
Steve. That might actually first non-Duke thing to get them down to.
Yeah, good as time as any to get game day here.
And by the way, Steve, you in Washington been playing since 1893. The series is 45-44 Washington. You guys have a chance late last week to tie that thing up, and you can't do it. I just something worth mentioning.
In Washington, I believe it lost their 6th straight in Palo Alto.
Crazy.
That got them off the schneid.
Hey, can we talk about something? Because we just talked about Mike Gundy before we get to Pac-12 locks and the upset specials and all that thing. When I was younger and Mike Gundy ranted about being a man and being 40, that was kind of like I don't know if you guys ever have this where you're like, that's what I'm going to be like when I'm that age. Like, you know, it's okay, that's my marker for 40 is Mike Gundy in that press conference. Now my marker for 53 is Dabo Swinney. After that last that outburst on
all right.
Me and Macon last night almost simultaneously sent each other this clip. Now, what's the guy's name? Tyler from Spartanburg?
You got it.
Yep.
Tyler from Spartanburg. I don't know what he said, but he touched a hot spot for Dabo, and Dabo went for about 5 minutes. And you know the Jay-Z gif where he's like, I'm not sure if I like this, but I'm bobbing my head? That was me. And I am admittedly a Dabo hater. There's so much about Dabo that I don't like, and maybe it's just the Clemson thing, but I think it's also like
God's name, image, and likeness.
I mean, the NIL stuff rubbed me wrong. I thought when players wanted to demonstrate a couple years ago when everything was going on, he kind of talked him down, shouted him down. There's things about Dabo that I haven't liked, and he's not the only college football coach. But coming out of this rant, this is the most I've ever liked him. I was on the porch last night listening to this rant, and I was like, do I like Dabo? Because when he lays it all out there, you can hear that and understand why when he goes into somebody's living room, he's going to get that guy.
Yep. Because
he can just go, and he is convicted in what he believes, and he's convicted in his belief that they've earned everything at Clemson. And, you know, I kind of thought coming out of this thing that, hey, Dabo's not so bad. Now, he's still Dabo, but for 5 minutes, he wasn't so bad.
Tennessee caught a stray in that rant.
Yeah.
Like Clemson hadn't sniffed a national title in 35 years. Hell, we beat Tennessee by however many points last year. It was their first 11-win season in damn near 20 years.
Yeah, and Coach K caught a stray, too, because he's like, does Coach K have bad seasons? And I was like,
well, he doesn't, because Coach K, he says his back hurts when they have bad seasons.
You're right.
And he puts
Does Urban Meyer have bad seasons? No, he's got an irregular heartbeat, or he coaches in the NFL. But I thought this Dabo rant was great. We both thought it was great.
The way he said the word Alabama makes me know even more that he wants that job when Nick's done.
Yeah.
Like only two other have 2 national titles, Georgia and Alabama.
That's right. I thought it was pretty interesting, man. He took that guy to town. He just, for 5 minutes.
Tyler.
Just laid into Tyler. You just touched my foot.
I know. Second straight show.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that it's the first time I've ever liked Dabo. I thought the rant was great.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how this is going to play out, because you go back to the Miami loss in the post-game press conference, and they asked him what happened in the last play, and he just throws his quarterback underneath the bus, say it was a give, and he trying to do his own thing.
Kyle Shanahan did that with Brock Purdy this weekend. And Steve Wilkes the weekend before.
It'll be – now you got Notre Dame coming in for a noon game. Clemson has a lot of school pride. And interested to see what that building is going to be at noon on Saturday.
It's November.
As Clemson's
not
underdog.
today, but when they play this week. It's November, and they're 500. I mean, it's just incredible. It's incredible, which also reinforces, and I love the rant and everything, and he has worked for it. When you look at his career and everything he's done and his life story is captivating. But you need those players. And that to me is like – that lesson, every coach,
buddy.
I mean, like Bill Belichick right now is struggling, and Tom Brady left, he's struggling. You know, Nick Saban is struggling, relatively speaking, right now. There's a lot of coaches that learn this lesson in different ways on different scales, and you know, while I applaud that rant, you're nobody without the players, which again reinforces the fact that. Maybe you should pay these guys, and maybe you shouldn't complain when they start driving around cars as nice as you. That's just the way of the world now. Anyways, that's enough on Dabo. Best Pac-12 lock. What do you got?
Well, we touched on SC in Washington as the game of the week. I think a real interesting game is UCLA at Arizona, who's found a resurgence with Fafita at quarterback. Cal's going to Oregon. Oregon State's going to Colorado to give double digits there. Tough slate in the Pac-12.
Let's get back on the bus, Steve. Plus 13.5 after a bye-ish.
I don't know, man. How long ago does that feel?
Yeah,
remember the Colorado thing?
We were there. I remember it.
Yeah.
But a lot has happened since. That's for sure. We're going to take SC.
Okay.
All right.
SC. Okay. Upset special.
Who's our favored?
Saw that.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
Buy low.
I don't know. Tony Elliott got shouted out in the Dabo rant.
I know, right.
Who's are headed to Clemson next year?
I know. Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Iowa State's favored against Kansas. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's stinky.
Very stinky.
I mean, Kansas, they really they're still carrying that gold post into that pond, dude.
How about
they really cared a lot about that. Like the
Broncos.
About
BC going to Syracuse and winning?
Okay, how about it? Upset special, BC at Syracuse. STL Memorial lock. This is now a non-Power 5 lock for all you absolute sickos out there. I had Rice last week. It was one of the lone bright spots for me. Rice catching a bunch of points. They covered backdoor against Tulane. What do you got?
Army's officially on the cross-off list after their performance the last 2 weeks.
Can't cross off the troops.
They're on the list.
With the Packers.
Steve, Northern Illinois won 3 in a row.
They have. Hashtag Maction starts.
Halloween topic, Saluki is a terrifying dog.
Ooh.
Probably the most terrifying looking dog there is.
Let's go Marshall plus 3.5 at App State.
Okay. I profited off Marshall last week. Coastal. Got it done. Covered easily. Okay. How about Timmy Chang? Which, to remind people, is an award about a college football player. That's all I know.
Non-Power 5. Non-Power 5. Okay. I know we got to get that fine print in there. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver in this week's Timmy Chang Award winner, Jimmy Kibble.
What?
Kibble.
My dad
6 catches,
last week.
201 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Georgetown, the Hoyas, Jimmy Kibble. Jimmy Kibble and the Hoyas.
And how about the Conklin Award, which goes to another college football player?
Watch out this week. This week's Conklin Award, Haynes King, former Texas A&M quarterback, now the Georgia Tech quarterback. Feel great for him. Left for dead in College Station. Beats North Carolina, 23 of 30 for 287, 4 tuds, and 8 carries for 90 yards. That's an 11-yard average on the ground. Gave passes to 9 different guys. Haynes King.
Does the Vegas draft pick get the Isaiah Simmons award because you saw him on the field and he was just like He-Man?
Yeah, his arms are long.
Yeah.
Long.
Yeah.
And then him wearing that single-digit 9, it's like, wow.
Yeah, dude's huge. Okay, Isaiah Simmons award goes to
Tyree
fuck,
Wilson.
I already forgot his name.
Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. Whatever you're looking forward to this football season, there's one thing that pairs well with every great moment, and that is an ice-cold Miller Lite. Whether you're at the stadium, playing fantasy football, or watching the game at home, or at the bar, Miller Lite is here to make your football season taste like Miller time. From kickoff to the clock runs out, you can't go wrong with a Miller Lite in your hand. It's the only light beer with a taste worthy of our national obsession. Because what's the point of having beer if it doesn't taste like beer? I go to Dirty Nelly's every weekend. Sometimes I'm prepping for the show at the bar on Saturday night, watching a little college football, getting ready to lay out our Miller Lite moments. I like to have an ice cold Miller Lite right next to me. And the folks at Dirty Nelly's, they know when I get there to have my ice cold Miller Lite. It's got only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12-ounce serving with a smooth taste and a crisp, clean finish. You get the taste you crave without the calories. So this season, crack open a light beer that hits your taste buds so hard you feel it in your heart. Make it Miller time all season long. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/greenlight. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs for 12 ounces. All right, it's that time. It's that time of the week where you light money on fire by listening to us. Now, Macon's going to say, well, not me, because he had a good week, and he's leader of the clubhouse now.
3-0?
No, he's 12-12 on the year.
2-1.
I'm 11-12-1. Steve's 11-13. Now, there was a time, I said this on the Monday show, after I lost all this money this past weekend, I walked out the door on Monday morning after betting the Bears enormous. And walked by my 4-month-old baby, and I decided I know about as much about the NFL as that 4-month-old baby. Now, 2 weeks ago, I felt like I was fucking Greg Cosell. All right, I was 11-6, and I was rolling. And then we moved the picks to Wednesday, and we're all struggling a little bit. So
not me,
not you, not Macon. So we're all we are struggling on Wednesdays.
I don't know
who
who
the
to
Thursday
pick,
night game, right?
Huh?
We could do Thursday night?
I was told we couldn't do Thursday night. Now we can do Thursday night? You guys are insufferable.
Man, these guys with these rules.
Oh, you're the ones with the rules. 2 weeks ago, I tried to fix Thursday.
To be fair, the show release moved from Friday to Wednesday.
Fuck you guys.
There's a
I need
change.
a week warning if you're going to change the rules.
I think that's
We're not
fair.
doing all this. Where all of a sudden, it's like, whatever Chris wants, we just all conspire to, because he's the boss.
Not the guest. We want what Chris wants.
Steve, you're up first.
So no Thursday night.
No Thursday night, not without a week's written notice.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
I'm
That's
putting
fair
in
as
the week's
fuck.
written notice right now.
Okay, put it in now. And
Next
then next Thursday, what were you going to play on Thursday night?
Steelers.
I agree. Steelers
Love
in the
it.
under. I already put it in at 37. It's at 35.5.
There you
Don't
go.
bite the cheese on the Houston Texans looking like, or not the Houston Texans, I'm confused. the uniforms and shit. Don't bite the cheese on Will Levis looking like Patrick Mahomes out there. Okay, I'm not saying he's not going to be all right, but this is a week to buy the total low and buy the Steelers. I agree with you, Steve.
Okay. I'm going to the best game of the day in Germany. Give me the Dolphins plus the points. I love this matchup for the Dolphins' defensive line. I love that group, and I think that's the difference in this game. Mahomes, not 100%. Now he's got to fly across the globe to play, and I like the Dolphins here.
Across the globe. Am I up?
You are.
Oh, I'm not used to those. All right. Fuck. Well, it's here.
Do you know who to pick?
It's here. What can I see the lines real quick? Can you throw these
Those
lines
glasses, huh? That's what it is. You can't
up?
see
Okay, yeah.
with those
Zoom
glasses.
in. Yeah. By the way, I'm coked up Elvis. Did you realize that?
I thought you were the honky
Faded
talk
a little
man.
bit if you want to
Oh shit! Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Honky talk man.
He's putting chalk all over his face.
Well, at the end,
how do you explain that to the kids?
Oh, you say, hey, drugs are bad, okay? What Dad's doing on the back porch, it's not a big deal. But what Elvis was doing at the end of his life, it was a big deal. That's why he died on the toilet. Son, you'll never see me dying on the toilet. Unless it's cardiac arrest or something. I'm not a drug guy. Elvis was a drug guy. It's pretty easy to explain this to the kids.
Okay.
My vice is gambling. Maybe you should take my side sometimes, Waylon. Okay?
Okay.
Go to your room.
Okay? A little left-handed cigarette every once in a while. It's not going to hurt anybody. Fuck. Elvis. All right.
Make a
Fuck.
pick.
I'm going to make a pick. I'm going to make a pick here. And my pick is going to be... God, this is icky.
Anybody going to go back to the Packers?
No, I'm
No.
going to take the New Orleans Saints.
Whoa.
-7. All right. A lot of money on the Bears. I'm nervous about it. But here's my thinking. Okay. And this is where I get into trouble when I think. But New Orleans defense is better than the Chargers defense. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Tougher environment. Yep. Okay. Derek Carr, not real good with people falling all around him. Now Montez Sweat factors in, right? Because all of a sudden he's a Chicago Bear. But I think the pocket's going to be pretty clean, and the last 6 quarters they have been rolling a little bit offensively. Now I know I said I'm off the Saints, but remember what I thought about Bajent the first week. I was like, man, he stares things down. He's a young quarterback. I think maybe we see that this week. And my biggest worry is probably low total, big spread, but I'll take the Saints. I already threw him in a teaser with the I can't tell you yet.
Okay.
Come on, first place.
I am going to go to Germany with Steve,
Fuck, you're going to do it.
and I'm going to take the under
Fuck you. I should have took it.
on 51, being the total of Munich. Dolphins and Chiefs under 51.
Now I can't bet it because then I got to root for you.
Steve just...
You know what he did last week? Can I tell you? I know I'm interrupting you, but can I tell you?
Yeah.
Please.
I came in the day after I gave out the fucking the Colts, or the not the Colts, I gave out the Texans, and they're playing the Panthers.
Yep.
And I said, Macon, I'm really worried about it. We've got Frank Reich 4-0 off bye in Indy. This one stinks. Don't bet it. I'm betting the other way. So Sunday, the locks come out. We post a social. Under the social, Macon's got this.
Oh, no, my friend. And I hope these folks will attest. I was the first one in this room to say, hey, it's the Panthers. And then you said, save it, I got a stat.
I know, but you put it under the thing like I'm on the Texans. It's been 4 days since I said I'm on the Panthers.
Oh, you take everything so personally.
Yeah.
That wasn't a personal thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt a little personal.
I didn't mean it that way.
Okay, well, I got to say, you're probably right about this one, the under in Munich. I love this play, Macon.
Okay.
That's Frankfurt.
Thank you.
Or wherever the fuck
Whatever
it is.
the fuck.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Geography nerd.
Yeah, across the globe, around the globe. He's going halfway around
I'm
the
flying to
globe.
4 cities a week. I know every city.
Okay.
All right there.
Next.
Nerd.
Steve, you're up.
I'm up.
He called you a nerd.
I called him a nerd first.
I know, but it sounded different.
It did.
Felt
Eagles,
like-
-3 at home against the Cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the right pick.
Love it.
Yep.
I'll be betting the house on the Eagles.
It's the right pick.
Chasing. I'll be
Chase Long.
chasing Eagles money line.
Chase Long.
Okay, here's another icky one.
The Ickies ones are the way to go.
I'm going to go Giants catching 3 points. I'm going to
Wow.
buy the half point. Giants catching 3 points in Vegas. I don't know if
Who's
Danny
the
Dimes is
quarterback?
going to be up. I don't know if
No,
Tyrod
Danny
Taylor-
DeVito.
Who's going to be up? It doesn't
Tommy
matter.
DeVito.
It doesn't
Danny
matter.
DeVito.
Is it DeVito?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Wait, tell me the truth before I make
It could
this
be
pick.
Dimes. We don't know. We don't know.
Hostetler.
We don't know on DJ.
Jeff
What's going on
Hostetler
with
again.
Tyrod Taylor? Is he dead?
Danny Dimes
He's out of the
said
hospital.
He will play Week 9 against the Raiders.
I love it. Give me the Giants catching
Oh,
3
wow.
points. I'd
That's a good pick.
Buy it to 3 if I have to. Is it
Come on,
2.5? Oh, it's at 2? That's a fucking bad.
Careful.
Ooh.
I could get you 2.5 some places.
Yeah, I can get 2.5 all
the
types of
2.5.
places, huh?
I can find a 2.5.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm buying the
for the
three.
host. For the host.
For the host.
Help him out.
I don't get any Grubhub money back from any of you guys. The least you can do is give me a fucking.
Grubhub well's dried up. I haven't seen food in here in months. I'm going to go to primetime. And I'm going to take and buy a half point with the New York Jets. It's at 3. I'll go to 3.5.
That's a great pick.
Jets hosting the Chargers.
Great pick. It's on the list. God damn it.
All righty. I am going to go to Foxborough and give me the under in Commanders Patriots.
By the way, and we're going to talk about more locks after this, but I kind of like the Pats in this spot.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, like, convince me otherwise. I just throw all the against the spread stuff out with Bill the first half of the season. Throw all the, whatever metrics you want. They're playing better ball right now.
And Washington's losing a lot and just traded Montez Sweat.
I know, yeah. And I know it's about the contract.
And there's a lot of bad tape on that O-line.
There's a lot of bad tape on the O-line. All right, yeah, like you're not going to be able to get the ball out. We talked about Sam Howell, 2-4-7 or whatever this week. He got the ball out quick. The quick game was there. Like, New England can challenge these guys.
Does Bill watch the iPad on a treadmill?
He kind of does, dude.
Yeah,
I used to be in the weight room, and he'd be in there just walking, and, he can't just walk. He's got to be doing film, too.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about maybe some more of these games in a little bit. Okay.
You could take the Pats.
Here's what I'm deciding. I got a total here that I like, okay? And I think it's going to be under in Baltimore. It's sitting at 43, and I like it there. I just feel like when you look at the Ravens, there are Ravens 8 of the last 12 Seattle games went under. 12 of the last 18 Ravens games. 8 of the last 10 Baltimore at home. 5-0 as 5-0 in the last 5 as home favorites to the under. So like in the 3-5 to 10 range. So like there's a ton of metrics here that say to take the under here. If I don't hit the under, it's because of all these metrics.
Oh, why are we so worried about the Seahawks all of a sudden? Don't we think they're excellent?
I do think they're good.
1 o'clock on the East Coast? What is it?
I don't know if that really proves out. If you look at the Seahawks and teams.
Should have lost to P.J. Walker. Is that it?
No, it's just the total. It's just I just feel like this game, when you look at these numbers.
Just the 5.5 seems like a high number. I know you're on the total.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I would bet the Ravens if I had to bet somebody.
Okay.
I just feel really good about the Ravens.
Okay.
It's not a divisional game. It's not this is the type of game where Detroit out of conference comes in town, out of division comes in town. They whoop them. I just feel like this is a good spot for the Ravens.
All right, I've got a terrible one for you to round out the slate here. Minnesota Vikings and their quarterback +5 in Atlanta.
Jeez, you're doing it.
Hey,
Be it Jaron Hall. What, has something happened?
I also think they're trading for a quarterback today.
Well, you are right, sir.
Okay.
Who is it?
That's why.
Oh, no.
Josh Dobbs.
It's Josh Dobbs? Oh.
So I'm going to let that line. I'm going to let that line come back down, and I'm going to take the Falcons on the other side of it in real life.
Is the pick in? I liked it better when it was Jaron Hall.
Did you?
I said it, but I didn't have that information.
Really?
I said the Vikings.
Okay.
Can I take it back?
I'm sure you can.
I can take it back, yeah?
It's fine if you want
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Josh Dobbs.
So I'd like to take some of mine back. All of them.
Okay.
Nerd.
All right. Okay. Joe Public squares. Bengals are playing well. 2.5 at home.
Is Joe Public on? Let's talk about that one. The locks are in. Steve's got the Dolphins catching points, the Eagles laying points, the under in New England. I got the Saints too many points. Giants catching 3 with Danny Dimes, buying the half point there. Under 43 Seahawks Ravens. Macon under 51 Dolphins Chiefs. Jets buying the half point to 4. Love those. And then the Bengals -2.5. This is where I might be on the other side.
Okay.
Because Joe Public, I haven't looked yet, but the public I would assume would be on the Bengals.
I think so.
Yeah, so you are Joe Public.
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I like the Bills there. I really do, especially if this is at 3. And I like the over. Okay, like I think this is a game where, and you look at the Bills 10 days ago, they ran a lot of no huddle. They upped the tempo. They adjusted to having one tight end up in the game. I think if they can go light and keep those guys out of that bare front, right? Like that bare front for San Francisco was really good last week for Cincinnati and San Francisco. I think if Buffalo can dictate the terms of this game, the scoring will be up. And I kind of tend to like Buffalo. What do you think on that one, Steve?
Really interested to see what happens with the way Cincinnati – I don't know if Cincinnati could play better than they did last week. That was really, really impressive.
Clinic.
And when I look at the Bills, like just look at – Stephon Diggs has 90 targets in 8 games. 90.
Yeah.
And when I look at the Bills, I still wonder about what they do well offensively. Like I think that's a problem. If Godwin turns around a half a second earlier, they lose that game Thursday night. I still can't get over seeing a Hail Mary hit the ground.
But the backdoor cover, the drive was awful.
Oh, God.
I mean,
Disgusting.
it was
2 fourth-down penalties.
It was so
That was an
fucking
all-timer.
gross. It was so fucking gross.
And then Evans catches that ball off the helmet.
Dude, so that's what I'm saying. They're not even in range to cover, or win if things kind of go like 3 plays, 2 on 4th down, and then I think there was another one on that drive that extended that drive.
I'm just really interested in Buffalo's plan and how they go about attacking Cincinnati's defense. You know about the defensive ends. I think their secondary's super underrated. So what are they going to come out and try and establish? That's what I wonder. If they come out and have a plan, like that over is easy, I think. But if they come out and dilly-dally and, false starts on the road and that whole thing, and Josh tries doing too much with, being behind the sticks, they're in trouble. Again, because I think that consistency is just bad. Now, Gabe Davis had a great game against Tampa. Does he ever put them all together? That's what I worry about Buffalo. I'm not sold. I do agree with Macon with Cincinnati there.
So I got to get back to what I do. Tease God's got to get back to what he does.
Now.
I'm putting in a teaser as we speak. Cleveland Browns -1, Buffalo Bills +10.
Okay.
And I'll hedge that with the over. It's not really a true hedge, but I feel like it's a hedge
Tease
in my
the
brain.
over.
Tease the – you don't tease totals, Steve.
Why not?
You just stick to the Wong method.
Okay. Got
it. Some other ones I had on my list here.
That's a good one, Chris.
What?
That's
Do you like
easy
that
money,
teaser?
what you just said.
It sounds easy. But that's why they call them teasers. Okay, so we've got that teaser. I also threw the Saints in the teaser with the Browns as well. So there's a lot riding on the Browns. Okay. Josh Dobbs is out of the picture. Do you think Kyler Murray plays? Because that's what Gannon said. It's either going to be Kyler Murray or the rookie. I don't think you want to roll Kyler Murray out there for any reason against Cleveland.
They said Tune.
Yeah, so it's Tune.
Yeah, it's got it. And I thought that's a 21-day deal that Murray has to practice for.
I don't know. Nolan, what do you got?
It is a 21-day window, but he can come off earlier.
He can come off early?
Yeah, whenever that does.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a little game plan wrinkle, but do they really want to even win this game? I mean, at this point.
No.
And another thing I want to bring up, if you're looking to bet Cleveland, and that line's now up to 8, the Cards have – is it possible that we overvalue the Cards? Like, it's crazy to me because all we talk about on this show is how good of a job Jonathan Gannon's done and that sort of thing. They're like 1-7. Okay, they start the season 3-0 against the spread. Then they're 0-4 against the spread, depending on what you got the Seattle game at. If you got it at 9, Seattle. If you got it at 10, it was a push. But then last week, the only way they get that cover is that freak onside kick. And so, like, they have been failing to cover the spread for much of the season. I think knee-jerk is like Cardinals play everybody close. If they're starting this rookie, I like Cleveland here. And I like the under. You talked about the under in Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. I like Baltimore. The Panthers catching 3 points. I also would look at the over in that game. Indy can't stop anything. That's pretty much all of it. I mean, like New England. I like New England. Anything else you like that's fringy here looking at it? I mean, Rams-Packers is icky.
I know a guy named Rams-Packer.
Do you really?
Yeah. Great writer, Andrew Rams-Packer.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Eagles is the right play, Steve.
Eagles, right play. Rams-Packers, Packers laying 3 at home. McVay, does he have something up his sleeve? Because I don't know if Stafford's out, or is he going to play? We thought that injury was going to be much worse than it turned out to be.
Yeah, that's
Justin Fields deemed week to week. You worried all about that Saints figure if one trots out there?
I'm not. I don't think Justin Fields. I think the rule is if you're coming back next week, you can't wear sunglasses on the sideline.
Yeah, fair.
You know that seems like 3 weeks.
Mimicking calling the play on the sideline.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That everything scares me right now. It's fucking Halloween. I took a bath last week, so.
Steve, you want your half point on the Eagles? You can get them under a field goal -2.5.
What's Kansas? What's the Dolphins?
2.5, I think, or 2.
It's a 2.
I'll take that to 3.
Well, it's just
It's
2.
a half
It's a
point.
2. So
Oh,
yeah,
it's at 2. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. Yeah, Eagles.
Here's the last game I want to ask you guys about before we wrap up. Houston and Tampa Bay. This is one that I can't figure out. The line, the line's 2.5. Texans laying 2.5 at home. 40 is the total. It opened up at like 38. I thought initially you want to bet the under, but I don't know. I can't figure this one out.
If the Bucks win, it's under. If the Texans win, it's over.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. And who do you think wins this game?
He leans Texans, but he stays away.
I lean Texas and stay away, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think
The front's really good in Tampa on both sides of the ball. The fronts are really good. I think that the Texans have enough up front, but they can't really run the ball. It kind of comes down to protecting C.J. Stroud.
Bucks have lost 4 of 5.
That's that. All right. Well, let's look and see if Schefter's tweeted anything, and then get on our merry way. Has any trades happened as of 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock here?
Josh Dobbs was the last one.
Okay.
At Arizona to Minnesota.
Splash.
Jeez, he's gonna.
I don't even know what they're doing in Minnesota.
Should have gotten Kyler.
Okay.
They must not feel good about Jaron Hall.
No, not at all. But like,
he took a couple shots late too.
yeah
3
no
for
question.
4. He's
Hopefully
like 37 years old.
Hopefully those shots follow him team to team from last week, and he's feeling sore this week. All right, guys, happy Halloween. Enjoy the festivities, and hopefully we made you money today.
Couple things. Shout out to the branch and Virginia tight end Sackett Wood will not play this week.
Oh,
Sackett Wood.
okay.
That's a Virginia name if I ever saw
No,
it.
it's not.
Yes, it is.
Sackett Wood. I've never met anybody named Sackett. Lived here almost my whole life.
Big day for Grant Mish.
Okay. Take care, Steve.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Happy Halloween.